Good morning, everybody, and welcome to join us the Tallinn Digital Summit second day in the Leadership Salon stage. Today, we turn our focus mainly on cybersecurity topics and the challenges and opportunities that come with protecting our digital societies. A few quick reminders before we start. You can connect to our Wi-Fi. The network is called the Digital Summit, and it uses opportunistic wireless encryption, so it's secure and doesn't need a password. You can join the discussions via Slido, and we have a QR code for a Slido, so just scan it and you can write down your questions. And when you post something about our summit, please don't forget to use the hashtag TDS2025. We'll begin today our discussion with a topic that goes right to the heart of Europe's information space. Our media is on the front line facing AI-generated content, disinformation and collapsing business models, while global platforms capture both the data and the revenue. Our first panel will open up the struggles our media industry faces. And I'm also reminding you that please use this Slido because our panel will take questions from the audience. And our panelists are Ole Jakob-Sunde, Elisa Alvarez, Anssi Komulainen, and the discussion will be moderated by Terry Schultz.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership Salon. Thank you to all of you joining us here in person and also to our audience joining via the live stream. And I would just re-emphasize that those people who are not lucky enough to be with us here in beautiful Tallinn can also submit questions to our panelists. So we only have 40 minutes, so let's get started. You have heard their names mentioned, and you can also get much more detailed bios on the website, but I just want to bring in a couple of points about each of our speakers to make everyone understand just why we have such a dynamic panel and why I'm very lucky to get to be moderating this today. So Ole Jakob-Sunde, he is the chair of both the Scott Trust and the Tinnitus Trust, and I looked those up, and those are owners of some very key media. Norway's Aftenposten, Sweden's Aftonbladet, and also The Guardian, correct. So I had to really look into what this meant, but I'm really interested in what you have to say here. Ole, Elisa Alvarez, she is the managing partner and the CIO of Global Intellectual Property for Tower Peak Partners. And Elisa leads the Global Rights and Intellectual Property Strategy, which is, of course, key here in the media environment, especially when we're talking about generative AI, something that journalists talk about a lot. Anssi Komulainen, he is a former employee of Yles Radio, where I also got my start as a foreign correspondent. Very excited to have you here, Anssi. And now you work for Citra, where you focus on AI adoption. So that is also a key question here for journalism. My name's Terry Schultz. I have been reporting from Estonia since 1989, which gives a clue about just how old I am, but also why I'm so honored to come back anytime I'm asked by ICDS. So thank you for having me here. Now, to get started. Now, paneled on just Wednesday, just this week, I was reporting from Brussels, where I live, on the European Commission's new AI strategy called Apply AI. They're aiming to make Europe more tech independent, of course, of the United States, of China. But also there was an interesting statistic given there by the Commission. Only 13% of companies used AI last year. Meanwhile, consumers, are using it at a much higher rate. So this is an interesting gap here. And Oli, we're going to start with you. Our panel titles implies or presumes that Europe is a global innovation powerhouse. It doesn't sound to me, if only 13% of companies are using AI last year, that doesn't sound like a powerhouse. But anyway, we're going to keep the question. Can it remain a global innovation powerhouse? Or if it's not one, how can Europe become an innovation powerhouse?
Well, for the media industry, I think it's fair to say that, yes, we have been quite clever, not in shaping the foundational technology, but in adapting it. So if you look at the media industry in Europe in general, there are several companies that have been clever in how they have taken the strategies available and used it to change the media industry in Europe. So I think to some extent it's fair to say that it is a good news for Europe. Saying that, I think we have some lighthouses that have been clever in doing that, but for the whole industry, for the industry as a whole, I think we have a lot of work to do still. And of course, we are in constant transition in the media industry, so it never stopped. It's all the way from the digital start in the end of the 90s. We have been trying to figure out new business models. And we have to do that again.
And what are those examples? Just who's doing it well?
Well, I think Schibsted is doing it quite well. I think The Guardian is also doing it quite well. But there are others. I mean, Le Monde is doing it well. Axel Springer and several of the German media companies are quite far ahead. So I think there are many examples, and there are smaller ones also that are able to pick up how AI can be used in a constructive way in the media industry. So it's not all sort of bleak, but for the industry as a whole, I'm concerned.
Okay, that's interesting. But by what measure is it doing it well? I mean, how do you measure what that means?
How do you measure how technology is been working? I mean, I think you have to go to the different companies, because if there's something in this transition that we're in that is key, is to keep a close eye on your audience. And I think the media companies to a large degree have been broadcasters, saying that it's one message for everybody, which is of course in the digital industry that we're living in now. You have to be very careful in how you learn the audience and how you present something that's of interest in the format and the time that the audience is willing to consume it.
It's very interesting, and we will have many more questions on that. But Elisa, similar question to you. How do you view the lay of the land coming from a different perspective? And you have spoken about a gap between creative talent and commercial thinking. So what does that mean, particularly when it comes to your expertise on intellectual property?
So from where we sit as financiers and very focused on the media and entertainment sector as part of our IP practice at Tower Peak, we embrace technology, first of all, and we are very excited about the fact that audiences have been embracing technology. This is the starting point. Whether Europe is or not at the forefront, I think there's the two sides, as we're saying, audience first, in my view, and this will lead changes to how the operators in the space change their business models. To the specifics of creativity versus commercial, what we would like to see, and are very hopeful that things are shifting at a much faster pace than previously here in Europe, is a more commercially minded attitude from those that create content and exploit content.
Explain that more. I work for public broadcasters. So what does this mean for people like us? Sometimes we're dinosaurs, but for example, I'm told all my stories need to be digital first now. So, I mean, I think we're trying.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. Obviously, public broadcasters have a different remit, and where we come from, we're looking at delivering returns to our investors. So we look for commercially viable IP across different subsectors, of course. And I think primarily that's the connection between creating content or entertainment or information and connecting with the audience in a meaningful way, right? And looking for private capital to invest, that meaningful way also is looking at generating revenues.
And what about social responsibility? How much does that come into it?
That's very important to us. Our firm, and we are a multidisciplinary firm. In other words, we invest across different investment strategies and industries. Sustainability and energy transition has been the first investment fund that we launched to market about 15 months ago. And sustainability is part of our DNA. When it comes to investments in the intellectual property space, ESG is extremely important, and social responsibility, of course, is part of it.
Okay, very interesting. Again, we'll come back to you. But going to Ansi, again, going back to the title, it's hard for Europe to win and retain this reputation as a global innovation powerhouse when it is so deeply dependent on the United States when it comes to tech. And one of the things that you're doing is to try to help Europe become more tech independent. How is that going? And how hard is it?
How is that going? Well, first of all, when we think about and talk about AI adoption and sort of like leadership and sort of like innovation, I think the key things that we need is expertise. So we need to know what to do. Then we need capital. We need to have money to do it. And if we want to be sovereign about it, if we want to have sort of decisions at our own hands, then we need some sort of infrastructure to do it as well. And right now we feel that fragmentation is kind of like hindering us in all of these aspects.
Sorry, who is we believe this? You?
Oh, we as in kind of like in the Future Media Initiative, which is kind of like who I'm advising to, but also with Citra, who's my employer at the moment. So basically, kind of like how do we join our forces as Europe? How do we pool our resources? How do we get our best people together to think of the solutions that kind of like would create an alternative for the big tech or the hyperscaler solutions? And how do we invest right into the infrastructure that we are building, to enable our own alternative solutions? And how do we make sure that our industries are kind of capable and have the expertise to use this infrastructure to gain the competitive advantage that's needed? And of course, how do we gain the kind of the capital or the money to scale these solutions and bring them to the people? So we believe that it's actually the user experience where we should be really focused and the application layer. So basically, people don't care where the GPUs are or what the infrastructure behind is. People want to have stellar experiences, and if we are not able to kind of bring people like top-notch digital experiences, we are going to lose control with the people, and that's kind of like where we lose the game and where we lose the sovereignty and kind of European kind of value set within the community.
I definitely want to talk more about the Future Media Initiative because that's really key and very inspiring. But just on this topic initially, do you not think that people started caring more about the infrastructure when Elon Musk started changing what we knew as Twitter? Don't you think people started becoming more aware and perhaps more picky about that kind of aspect once things started getting so crazy?
Yeah, of course. I think like people do care about, for example, with data, people are more kind of like careful with how their data is being used and if they have control over their data, and that's definitely kind of a growing concern. And then TikTok and different media have kind of made parents worried about, what kind of information are their children getting, and then of course, adults are feeling also the kind of the kind of traction towards these services. And then you have, like you mentioned, then you have services which are controlled by certain individuals, and then have a say on the kind of like the information space that we have. So there's all kind of a growing concern. But I think when we refer to infrastructure, the biggest kind of worry was probably due to the tariffs and the kind of like the growing tension between superpowers and geopolitics. So we started understanding that, well, if everything is a bargaining chip, maybe kind of like the AI capabilities or the data capabilities or data economics that we are running will, once again, if we are too dependent, we might end up in a situation where we are kind of too dependent, and we have to start negotiating for the basic sort of digital service that we have as a trading chip, with among other trading chips.
Right, very true. I mean, along with everything else, defense, and I mean, just sort of everything was on the table starting last January, it seems. But was that kind of a late wake-up call for Europe? Everybody kind of always knew that it would be nice to have more sovereignty. It would be nice not to be dependent on whatever happens in the U.S.
I think for people, it's an easy trade-off. So, in a sort of philosophical level, if you're asking people, okay, well, data, for example, if I enter a website, would I not like to give my data for free, and would I not like to, hand it out to people to be used for productizing me? Probably people will say like, yes, I do not like that to happen. But as soon as you land on a website and you have like all these questions and you're like, or cookies or stuff choosing, it's kind of like, okay, what do I have to hide?
To go fast, you accept all, right?
So I think as a user, a consumer, I think people are like, as a principle, people are worried and people are concerned and actually quite aware of these things. But daily habits and how do we use these systems, it's just so easy to kind of skip that bit.
That's right.
And I think we are headed that way in sort of many aspects of our digital life.
Okay, I give my panelists, would any of you like to come back on something that has been said so far?
I can say that when it comes to legislation, it is the media industry is treated the same way as the big techs. So when it comes, for instance, to GDPR and how that is treated, of course, I can say that big techs are treating data in general very different from media companies in Europe, but still we have sort of the same kind of rules. So that's, I think, is a difference. Just coming back to innovation and the title, I think that where European media companies have understood something important, and that is to keep a close eye on the direct relationship with the clients. And we have been more clever in how we build digital news sites that actually could attract the attention directly to our sites. If you compare to US companies, media companies, they have been struggling, or maybe not struggling, they have been interested in cooperating with the Googles and the social media sites because they believe that can enhance the traffic. The difficulty now, of course, is with the AI, that traffic will be will fall away. Because to a large extent it will be a summary of the news that will meet you when you search anything, a news item, and not a reference to a news article in a reputable news organization. So
and it's hard to tell the difference, and the average user may not be able to.
I think that the media companies has to ask themselves some basic questions, and that is, what audience am I serving, and why do I do it? So very basic questions. Then they have to say, okay, what can I give that audience that AI can't give them? So you have to look at the product that you can give that is particular to the audience that you would like to address. And thirdly, how do I make my community care about me? And I think a lot of media companies is treating their clients more like a transactional relationship, and that's not how the world is working now, and particularly in the generations to come. You can have boomers like me paying for this withering news service, but it's not the future. So you have to turn it around and ask yourself some difficult questions.
And do you find that as well, Lisa? Does that explain, describe a lot of what you're working on? Because, of course, again, I'm not an expert on this, but a lot of concern by the average journalist out there is that our content is being used and chewed up and spit back out without any attribution to us, which can be we can be misquoted or or misrepresented, and then not have any control over our output.
Of course, it is a concern, and ultimately, and I think your point is incredibly important, is how to create new relationships with the audience and understanding what the audience, the consumer ultimately, wants, and how to create lasting relationships, right? So it's about strengthening the brands,
yep.
And the importance of the trust that you, and certainly our generation, has in brands such as The Guardian, for instance, or the BBC, or here in Europe, so many others. And I think the challenge beyond that is that the new generation, they have been now trained to consume media in a completely different way. This brings disruption to business models, of course. But this is thankfully where I see a lot of creativity in Europe. Not only in Europe, but definitely here, where there seems to be a number of initiatives that are looking to tackle that. And it's going to take some time. And obviously, as financiers, we tend to be more reactive than active. We're not at the forefront of creating change in that way. But I'm super excited at what I'm seeing, and especially here in Europe.
I want to talk about the Future Media Initiative, but also just to mention, as one example, I work with an NGO which takes working journalists into classrooms with students as young as 11 and 12. And in Finland, they start training media literacy at 8, probably the other Nordic countries as well. Very, very young. Mm-hmm. And we found this to be very effective, but it's sort of a drop in the bucket that you go in and say, please look at my content because I have editors, yes, and I have fact checkers, and you won't be wrong. And that is even trying to train mm-hmm. young media consumers to feel like they don't want to be misled, to take responsibility for not being duped yourself. How does the FMI work with this? I'm really interested to hear more about that, and I think our audience would as well.
Just to touch first to talk about the kind of like trustworthiness. So I think we have to have more faith in kind of like in people who are using these things. I remember sort of like going to the UK in the 80s and seeing a sort of like a, I don't know what you call that, but pink press maybe it was sort of like a paper saying that a vegetarian gave birth to a green baby, and you would have a picture of a green baby.
Yellow
and
was there the green baby?
There was a picture of a green baby.
Photo, then it was
yeah, so it's like, okay, well, but it took me like a second to understand that maybe the picture isn't real, and maybe this doesn't
because we didn't know
reality.
How to manipulate.
So I think people are right now kind of facing sort of like a new wave of new kind of pictures of green babies. And they might be moving, and they might be really realistic. But if you
and they can talk at that age.
They can talk, yeah. But if you think about it, it's kind of it should be common sense to understand and kind of like assess that with your media literacy, like you said, with your own brain, and say like, okay, well, is that likely to be true? But obviously, it's getting really, really complicated and really, really tiring to consume news and all that. And I think that's where the great value of traditional media lies. That if we are entering a world where media is increasingly AI mediated, which necessarily isn't a good thing from a media perspective and sort of a perspective of trustworthiness of information and information space, but still, if we are entering into a world which is AI mediated, I think I kind of lost my thought there. But anyway,
trustworthiness.
Trustworthiness. So I think it's just that we have to really, really kind of like take a little bit of time and really pay attention to, okay, well, for a moment we will be lost there, but eventually we will start to understand the nuances and how do we kind of like face the tsunami of new kind of content. And I'm not so worried about the young people. I think they will be really like AI native really soon, but it's more like us boomers who are going to be sort of in trouble for a long time, because for us it is kind of like the old structures that are in place. But yeah, now coming to the point. So with the older structures, I think if you look at sort of like AI services that are pulling whatever they are catering to you from various sources, and you have no idea what the sources are, then you're in trouble. But if you are able to choose services that are using content from certain kind of like validated and trustworthy content providers, then you know that, okay, well, even though it's AI generated or the information comes from somewhere, if you are able to make a choice of choosing a service that uses, for example, I don't know, Guardian's or Schibsted's archives as the source for whatever it's generating, of course you have a kind of a better trustworthiness there. And when it comes to future media,
that takes a lot of effort that takes willingness by the consumer to look for those things. And as you say, if they're AI natives, they've never had to look for it, or perhaps it's never been drilled into them that this is the better way to consume.
Well, I don't know, if we are kind of like press natives, we were able to kind of like choose our newspaper, because we kind of like knew that, okay, well, this one, you kind of like, as a child, you realize that, okay, this is not very...
As a Finnish child.
As a Finnish child, but I believe that as a European child, you would kind of like realize that, and then kind of like, well, some other outlets would be more trustworthy. So I think it's kind of like a new world that we have to enter to and learn the game, but it's not going to be easy. And I think it's going to be harder for the older people like myself.
It's like...
But I think if I can just bring in your perspective, because we seem to be talking about all the challenges and the perhaps with a certain negativity around
fears.
But let's not forget. I think first of all we're going through the new industrial revolution, and it's inevitable that there's I think resistance, but. We have to embrace it and look for the how to optimize the tools that we are being given, and this is where I think the European angle comes into place so importantly, because here in Europe we have a tradition of, for the better or for worse, but regulating parts of society that we feel need to be regulated, unlike in other parts of the world, and where Europe can be at the forefront is really how to protect individuals from the less beneficial or entirely toxic, potentially, effects of AI in media.
Okay, Ole wanted to come back. And then I do want questions. It's very hard to see here, so if somebody has a question, please make sure I can see you or the person with the microphone, more importantly, and I have a question from online as well.
Okay. I think we have a transition problem that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that is that currently the business model of news, we can talk about the greatness of news and that we need it in society and that we will distinguish what is trustworthy or not. I'm not sure about that. I can comment on that afterwards if you want me to. But the business model is broken.
Of traditional media, you mean?
I'm sorry?
The business model of traditional media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and and the basic is that if you look at how the revenues are constructed, it's reader revenue and it's advertising, and advertising is already being eaten up, at least in the digital space, by the big tech companies. So we have to rethink how we can keep part of that, or at least a portion of it. And when it comes to the reader revenue strategies that we have, they're also being busted. I mentioned a little bit earlier about how big tech will summarize news, and people will go directly there, and there will not be any reference traffic. But also the propensity to pay is, of course, low. If you go to the young generation, they don't pay for news. Exactly. I mean, they regard it as a public good. They might pay for music. Now YouTube is taking that, and they might pay for films through Netflix. But I mean, you have to think about how you could be able to monetize that kind of traffic. So my fear is that while we're thinking about these things, a lot of media companies in Europe will go bust. I don't think they will survive. And what I'm saying is because we have talked about at this conference a lot about defense and how we defend Europe and increasing our defense spending. But this is the first sort of media-oriented discussion. And I do think that we need to pay much more attention to media as part of the defense of the democracies that we have in Europe. Because if you don't have reliable information to the public, then what do you have? It's taken over by either Russia propaganda or American big tech, who's...
when they work together, are particularly toxic.
Yeah, that's right. It's toxic.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Absolutely. And we are in the middle. Even if I'm optimistic on the course we are traveling, I'm very worried about how long time it will take and if we can finance the transition.
But the trustworthiness that you said you had a point you wanted to make on that. I think that's essential because we, as journalists, we are very aware that people no longer trust us or no longer, sort of automatically trust us, and that you have to work very hard to get that, even when you work for really established news medium.
Yeah. No, I can comment on that. I think that
the kids don't care. This is the problem. That's how it feels. It feels like the kids don't care. And maybe I'm just an old person.
No, they care. I mean, they care. At least the research that we've been doing, they care. Okay. Now, on the one side, you have, of course, the institutional trust, and that's really that has carried the media so far. But on the other side, you have personal trust. You trust an individual. And if you look in the digital space, the personal trust is now much bigger. You don't really trust the elite. You trust a person that shares your views and that has told you things in a short video clip about a topic that is of your interest, and you agree with him or her. And then gradually you will develop more trust in that individual. And you see it also on platforms like Substack and others, where experts, more or less, it depends who you follow, will talk about subjects, and they also carry a lot of trust. So I think the media really has to strive to maintain the institutional trust, and that's not self-evident.
Very true. Do you want to come in on that? Oh, I would, go ahead. I already asked you about trust, but also about propaganda. That was one of the questions I was going to talk to.
Propaganda.
The Russian propaganda that is really eating away at I would say the consumer's reality here. Even people who do have healthy skepticism, healthy critical thinking skills, are sometimes duped, and isn't that a big concern as well? I thought maybe FMI is looking at that as how to counter that.
Well, Russian propaganda. I don't think that's one of our topics. So basically, what FMI is a sort of network of 50 plus media companies from Europe. And what we're trying to do is we are trying to kind of tackle the biggest challenge that we feel in the European media space, which is fragmentation. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to kind of collectively innovate and understand where the future is going, and then pilot, test different kind of solutions, how to tackle the challenges that we see ahead, and create competitiveness for European media outlets. And the way we do it, we try to pool resources, we try to exchange our kind of like learnings, and then align our investment, and both kind of like private investments coming from private sector players, and then public investments coming from public service media and European Commission. So basically what we are trying to do, we are trying to kind of align our initiatives, and kind of propaganda. I think that
sounds like competitiveness through collaboration.
That's what we're aiming at, and I think.
Did you already use that slogan? I think it's a good one.
We'll start to use it from now. But I think propaganda is more on kind of like in the content front, and we feel that it's mostly about sort of reach of our messages to people. So basically, if I'm trying to kind of like bridge it to kind of sort of messages that are propagandist, I think the problem would be that it's the exposure of messages that people get to. So if you only expose to certain kind of messages, and if you flood it with certain kind of messages, it's very difficult to kind of understand, what the reality is. So for us, the big question is reach. So how do we get our messages across? How do we get our content across to people? And how do people find whatever they are looking for from our outlets? So that is a big kind of like the user experience question. And then when it comes to worrying bits about, for example, certain content coming from certain countries is kind of like in the foundation level in terms of AI training. So a lot of the models, regardless if they come from the US to China or Europe, they are flooded with sort of like disproportionate number of content coming, for example, from Russia. So it's kind of like built into these systems hypothetically. How it kind of performs, we don't know. But these are kind of like the worrying questions. Like, okay, well, if the propagandist aspects get into AI sort of like in a foundational level, then we are kind of like in a world which we can't understand.
Okay, I have tons of questions coming in.
Compliment.
Okay, just quickly. Is there anybody in the room? I can't see with the line. Okay, yes. I'll take one question here. Is that okay? And I have 7 questions now here, and I would really like to get to some of them. Yes. And introduce yourself, please. We can't see.
Yes, thank you, Mari Selrand. I'm with the conference, but actually putting on my other small publisher hat.
Oh, it is you, Mari.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were kidding that you were going to come ask a question. I'm so happy.
I'm here with my publisher hat. I'm part owner of a small local newspaper, and I can, on a small island community, and I can very much relate to all these worries about the revenue streams that Ola was talking about. We are seeing it on a very sort of grassroots level. But there's another point that I wanted to make, and maybe this can be worked out. What we have found that our readers, they don't need news from us. They get news from everywhere. What they do need is identity and community. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we can provide them that ChatGPT or Google Gemini will never be able to provide. So we are trying to focus on that. And my question is leading to this innovation thing. A lot of media companies are tempted, I think, to implement AI to provide individualized content to their readers. We've seen what that has done to the global population on social media, the polarization and fragmentation. Isn't that temptation maybe making this same mistake all over again? Maybe, I don't know, whoever.
Well, we only have 2.5 minutes left, basically, so maybe I'm going to take, is there anybody else in the room? Otherwise, I'm going to take a couple of these online, and then we'll have final remarks. We've answered some of them, I think, but this, I think, Elisa, would be directly to you. Do we need to renegotiate what IP is? That's an interesting question for you. I think, okay, let me just put these out there, and then we'll all each have an answer. Let me see if there's others that we haven't. To what extent has the value of media companies changed? I think we've talked about that. And also a good question from an anonymous user: what gives you hope? We can incorporate that in our final answers because we really only have time for one more round. So Elisa, I'll go to you first. Do you think we need to renegotiate what IP is in this environment?
That's both a legal question and commercial, I guess. We heard yesterday the Director General of the World IPO, an international organization that deals precisely with regulation and well beyond that, I learned. Yesterday, in terms of harmonizing the approach to intellectual property across the various country members. I don't see that there's a need to renegotiate IP. What there is a real need for is the technical tools that will allow the IP owners and those that benefit from IP to protect it.
And Ole, maybe you have a good answer to Maris's question. You're closest to the
I don't think that
now.
AI necessarily means that it's equal personalization. I think AI is a way you could produce journalism of interest that is relevant to the audience much faster and better than you have so far. So I'm very positive in integrating AI into the editorial process. For instance, one important deficiency of current media is too text-based. We are all thinking in text, but we do need to think in audio and in video. And if you have a text-based article, we are now testing how we can make that into a video thanks to AI. Which is, of course, a fascinating use and will also help a small regional newspaper in a format that they haven't so far not been able to produce themselves.
That's interesting. It might not help TV journalists like myself, though. I have a question that may go we're out of time. Anssi, a quick one. Maris, can I go over time? Okay, I'm going to take one more minute and then answer also the question of what gives you hope. This is a question, would people not want to, maybe also this goes to you, Ole, media companies could pivot and become the advocates for serious and true news. Can this not become a competitive advantage and indeed a business model?
I think we are.
We're already having to.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to be in the forefront of what is relevant to the audience. I've repeated that several times. So I think that without that, we are out of business.
That also goes to her question a bit, or the experience of the small paper. So just the final quick sort of lightning answer, what does give you hope? And you have all mentioned it a bit, but just to sum up, what gives you the most hope? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I do think that there are a lot of things that AI can do for us that can, as I said, produce things better. I also think that there are pockets of revenues that we could be able to find in this new world. So I'm both pessimistic in the short term, but I do think that if you do the right things and have the right mentality and sort of are able to bury our darlings and learn from other industries and take it in the stride and understand that we don't have much time, I think we can survive. But it's going to be tough.
Okay. And we don't have a choice, Elisa, said, right?
I think that I'm very hopeful. And I'm very bullish about this industry and the opportunities that lie ahead. With specific regards, and let's not forget, media is beyond information, is entertainment as well. And perhaps there's some inspiration that journalism could take out of other parts of media, entertainment in particular, thinking in particular about music and how it went through a very shaky time before recovering and beyond, and audiovisual, which a little bit later has gone through similar challenges and now re-emerging much stronger. So it's down to creativity.
Okay. And future media initiative, future media optimistic? I'm
very optimistic. I think we're in the verge of like new era. I mean, we have all these super tools that are available for us. We can, it can boost our creative potential. It can kind of, do our boring job instead of us, doing it for ourselves. And I think it's a great opportunity, and I think we just have to learn how to deal with it. But I'm full of like excitement and thinking it's a bright future. Honestly.
That's a great way to end, and that time went so quickly. I'm sorry. Thank you so much to those of you who joined us in person. Again, those of you who joined us online, and remember, stay in touch with everything from the Tallinn Digital Summit at #TDS2025. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not a problem. We're gonna continue, first of all, with a little change up of our stage. And we're gonna talk about the current state of Europe's cyber defense landscape. What was once seen as a distant threat has now become a part of our everyday life, with nation-state actors attacking our infrastructure, healthcare, and even the core of our democratic systems. To share his perspective on where these threats originate, how they have evolved, and what must be done to counter them, please welcome Andrew Lee.
So good morning, and thank you. I feel like I'm in one of those Roman amphitheaters, so, you know, the fruit comes this way. So I want to talk to you very briefly about some perspectives on Europe's cyber battlefield. Just very quickly, ESET is a company 30 years old now, proudly European. And we've been spending a lot of time, of course, in the last few years, working with our partners in Ukraine to try to defend against a lot of the Russian cyber aggression, which began in a much earlier time than we would think. Of course, the invasion of Ukraine happened, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine happened on the 24th of February. And the precursor to that, on the 23rd, was a widespread attacks with some wipers to cause destruction and disruption. And through the years of the full-scale invasion, through the aggression against against the infrastructure and against the people of Ukraine has continued from Russia. But of course, it didn't start there. We've been tracking Russia's destructive cyber attacks in Ukraine since 2013, when the first black energy attack happened, which caused wide-scale blackouts. And since then, we've seen many, many more of these. There are hundreds to thousands of attacks per day in Russia, from Russia in Ukraine, against the infrastructure in terms of espionage and in terms of just trying to cause general disruption and scope out possible vulnerabilities. As a kind of a global thing, let's just quickly take a look at some of the attack sources that we've seen. It's probably no surprise that the big four, as we call them, are the top. But it might be interesting to you to actually see that the Chinese-aligned threat groups are actually the largest proportion of the attacks that we see. Then, of course, there's Russia, North Korea, and Iran as the other kind of usual suspects. And then there are various other groups which are using cyber aggression to attack and to disrupt and to do espionage against other countries and against the democratic nations. So based on our telemetry, we've seen many of these groups conducting attacks all around the world, and very, very often we see the same kind of targets: the governments, technology, transportation, power, and engineering, and so on. And many of these are against technology companies and looking for intellectual property, looking for government information, particularly from things like ministries of foreign affairs. So let's take a quick look at some of the Russia-aligned groups that we've seen attacking. Again, really typical targets. They're targeting government, they're targeting defense, transportation, and energy. We've, of course, seen those, as I've said, in Ukraine. But there is often collateral damage, but not only collateral damage, there is deliberate attacks against other allies of Ukraine. Some of the top groups that we see active, anyone who follows this stuff will know that we use very strange names for these groups, but this is how it works. And these specific groups are the most active ones that we've seen coming out of Russia, in some cases like Gamaredon operating out of occupied Crimea. And these are the main agencies that undertake most of these. The Gamaredon Group was identified, and many of the key players were identified and are under international indictment for international arrest warrants. Gamaredon has been active since at least 2013. As I mentioned, there were many early attacks, and this attacks on the government sector is really skewed by Gamaredon's activity. There are hundreds of attacks, literally hundreds of attacks per week from the Gamaredon Group. And very often what happens is Gamaredon hands off their most lucrative or their most interesting targets to other groups, such as Invisimol, which is a different agency, but they have a different remit clearly, and they're trying to work on compromising other things. And we've just seen, for the first time, Gamaredon working with Turla. Turla is a very low volume threat actor. They go after really very specific targets. They're almost always trying to compromise government networks, and they're almost always very stealthy in what they're actually trying to achieve. So Gamaredon, very high volume, very noisy. Turla, very quiet and very specific. And we've just seen evidence that we're actually, those targeted machines that Gamaredon sees is then handed over in very specific cases containing very highly sensitive information to the Turla Group. But of course, while Ukraine has been the primary focus over the last few years of Russian APT attacks, we also see them targeting Ukraine's allies. We've seen very well-directed phishing attacks to try to compromise ministries of foreign affairs and things that I've said. But also there have been kind of collateral damage. In the very early days, the first days of the invasion, a group called Acid Rain took down not only infrastructure in Ukraine just before the full-scale kinetic invasion, but it knocked out thousands of Enercon's wind turbines across Germany. There was also the attack called Prestige against Polish supporters of Ukraine's institutions in Poland. This was an intentional attack against Poland. So I think we have to agree with Eliza Manningham-Buller, who recently said Britain may already be at war with Russia. I believe we have been at war with Russia since the early part of this century. But we're also seeing a lot of attacks from China, as I've said. And China, I think in the next couple of years, is destined to be the biggest part of our defenses and our work to actually defend the infrastructure that we have and our nations and our democracy. There's a lot of similar targets: government, transportation, engineering, manufacturing, and education. The Chinese are obviously very interested in exfiltrating intellectual property, particularly high-tech sector, but they also want to know what governments are doing. We've seen them active in Ukraine. It's probably very useful for them to know what has been targeted, what has been destroyed, so perhaps in future, they can offer to rebuild something for a price, of course. But they're also targeting the transportation sector. They want to know about logistics. They want to understand how perhaps how the militaries work, how our defense systems work, and several other sectors. So the victimology of this is really directed typically at several countries. There are many threat actors who are focused on the West, but also Asia, Africa, Middle East, and overlaps with several groups. One of the more recent ones that we've seen operating out of China is this unsolicited booker. But there's also Miraface, which has been very active in attacking Japan. Japan, obviously, being a sort of a major, let's say, flashpoint for China, but also Japan being a very strong ally of the democratic world. We've also seen many attacks that are focused on Europe, but also in East Asia, where there are various geopolitical factors in there. And I couldn't leave DPRK out of the picture. The main motivation for the North Korean regime is, of course, financial. They need to get money, and so there have been a lot of scams, a lot of ransomware attacks, a lot of financial crimes, again targeting many of the same sectors. But there have also been infiltrations where the high-tech companies in particular that have been fooled into hiring North Korean agents or hiring North Korean workers to work within their company, who then are able to exfiltrate data. And we've also seen, particularly in the defense and aerospace sector, we've seen a lot of these very targeted fake job advertisements that try to attract top talent to work for specific agencies or work for specific companies, and those companies are shadow companies of North Korean aligned actors. So just a quick look. The Deceptive Development Group is very active. Its operators are really targeting software developers and aiming not only to steal cryptocurrency with a possible a sort of financial motive, and you can see the type of attacks that have been, the type of companies that have been attacked, and in many cases, again, with false job listings to work at these companies, where they've then fooled the developers, and very often they also steal their cryptocurrency. So they impersonate many companies, particularly in the crypto sector and in the finance sector. Of course, the DPRK has also become involved in the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And this has also started to shift towards working to do espionage, working to attack and target Ukraine from North Korea as well. And just as a final note, as this whole conference is about AI, we very recently, in the last weeks, observed the first known AI-powered ransomware. It actually uses a local LLM on the machine to actually vary its code, vary the way that it works, vary the target on the system, so that, of course, that tries to make it much harder to detect. This was called prompt lock, by the way, so if you want to have a look at that. We've also done a lot of work on disrupting and trying to take down some of these networks of actors, and we've worked with multiple companies, we've worked with multiple law enforcement, and the industry as a whole has been very focused on trying to disrupt these, particularly the ransomware and info stealer groups. So I will leave you with this message in my last 49 seconds, that public and private partnerships are essential. The domain of intelligence, which used to sit with the military, with the government, with defense agencies, is now shared with the private sector. The private sector holds a lot of the intelligence and the data about malicious cyber threat actors. And it's essential also that we generate the political will to be able to have an answer to these threats. Very often, this cyber aggression has not risen to the level of any kind of response or any outward activity that would really discourage some of this, particularly at the nation-state level. As we've seen, cyber warfare is an adjunct to kinetic warfare. And as we move into these very uncertain times, as we see the rise of more use of AI, much more careful targeting, specific targeting, we really need a unified approach to counter the current cyber aggression. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And now it's time to take a little coffee break. And bringing your notice that we have an expo in the foyer. So 15 amazing Estonian tech companies are showing what they do. And also don't miss the discussions happening on the innovation stage. It's time to have coffee, and we continue in 30 minutes. welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had a great time and chance to recharge. We'll now look at how Europe is responding to the growing wave of global cyber threats through innovation, collaboration, and shared resilience. Please welcome Luca Tagliaretti to share the EU's approach to strengthening cybersecurity across the continent.
Good morning, everyone. How many times we hear the sentence, it takes a network to fight a network, or cybersecurity is a team sport? But how do we translate this statement, which are very valid and very true, into actions? How do we make sure that we build a network, we get the funds, we get the resources, we get all together? Well, the ECCC, the European Cybersecurity Competence Center, was actually created with this objective in mind, to ensure that we have a network of companies, private and public enterprises, public entity, that work together to ensure that we get a safer digital economy, a safer digital market. We have been created with three objectives in mind. First of all, to support research in cybersecurity. Second, to ensure that our companies are more competitive on the global economy and improve our sovereignty, digital sovereignty. And the third objective, to make sure that the resilience, or to help ensuring a better resilience of the digital and critical infrastructure and the whole economy as a whole. We do this together with 27 national coordination centers, one in each of the member states, and which are acting as a focal point for the interaction with the local ecosystem. They act as a point of contact for the funds of the European level. So we do this building our first network inside. How do we ensure that we fulfill the objective given by the regulation? So the objective, as I say, promoting research, ensuring more competitiveness, and helping the resilience of the critical infrastructure. We do this, first of all, by setting a direction, by setting an agenda, a strategic agenda. So the ECCC is responsible for setting, together with the member state, the strategic agenda for the Union on cybersecurity. The agenda is on our website, is reviewed regularly to take into account the political priority, the change in the threat landscape, and the technological evolution. The agenda has 27 actions, ranging from education and awareness up to 5G, 6G, protection of hospital, protection of the critical or transportation, and also even an area on space and dual-use technology. So the first element is the agenda. From the agenda, we build a work program, three-year work program. Our work program covers now from 25 to 27 with specific action, specific investment, the indication of who are the beneficiaries of our actions. So number one in our priority list is the strategy. We need to give direction to this network, to this team. The second element of our action is the element of funding, providing help, providing financial support for companies who want to step up their preparation on cyber resilience. We are responsible for the management of two of the largest funds of the Union on research and innovation, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe program. Horizon Europe is the biggest and the largest research program in the world. We are responsible for a part which is only focusing on cyber. It's around 1.6 billion in this MFF, so from 21 to 2027. And it's focusing on pure research. If you have read the Ninisto report, if you have read the Draghi report, there is a strong focus on ensuring that fundamental research is fostered, is pushed, is encouraged, because without that, we won't be able to go to the next part of the value chain. So fundamental research, particularly we are looking always into new technology, innovation, AI, and the quantum transition. We actually have a call out now for 90 million, which will close in November. Generally, these are funds which are given to university research center, those who work on research on a daily basis, and we cover the whole cost of these projects. The second program that we manage is the Digital Europe program. Again, is around 1.6 billion. We started late. The ECCC is only 1 year old. We became financially autonomous only in September 2024. So we got into the program when it was already some time. But we have already invested 520 million as of yesterday, which we closed a call, 520 million on digital, on program for improvement of cybersecurity. We cover 50% of the amount, so that means that more or less we mobilize €1 billion in the EU economy just on cyber. 250 projects all over Europe, so all member states got funding for this to DEP. 40% of the funds go to SMEs, around 20% are being given to member state, government organization, the National Coordination Center first, but also other government entities. Another 20% went to research institute, university, and the remaining to the other beneficiaries. 250 projects, more than 1,000 companies have received funds directly from us or through the network of the NCC at local level. What we have now in the pipeline for the next 3 years. So I just say the work program has been published. We have started the implementation of the 25 project, and we move soon to the preparation of the 26, 27. So what are the main priority there, which I think I want to share with you because show where we want to go together with the industry. The first priority is, again, on the DEP, is the implementation of innovation. But this time, not pure research, but we want solutions which are then ready for the market. One area is AI. We want to make sure that we get AI solutions which can be used, first of all, for government, so inside the SOCs, inside the hubs, inside the government organization, but then later on also to be used in the economy. We all know how complicated the regulations are, the NIS or the CRA. We want to help building solutions that facilitate the work of the SME on the reporting side, on the early detection of threats, on the sharing of information. So AI is one element. The second biggest group on the innovation side is quantum or quantum encryption, the preparation to the post-quantum world, which we all know when it comes will be a revolution in how we need to secure our information. So one area there is to prepare this migration on the adaptation of the key from PKI to PQC resistant key. But the second area, which is the biggest now, we want to build a testing infrastructure. It's going to be the first in Europe, copying to what the NIST is doing in the US, a testing infrastructure where you could go with your algorithm, verify compatibility, verify robustness, security, verify the interoperability with other algorithms. So this will be the first of its kind. We will launch a procurement, so this is 100% covered by the EU, by us, for 1 or 2 test centers with satellite, maybe, entity around Europe. We want to make it free or to a very low price for SMEs and for European companies, but we will open to all companies around the world. AI, quantum, the second group, after we finish the innovation, is about hospitals. We all know from the report of the ENISA threat landscape, we all know from the news how hospitals are target of ransomware. The numbers are very high. In every member state that I go, I always hear about how difficult, how complicated it is to secure in the hospital infrastructure, the health infrastructure. So together with the Commission on the health roadmap, we have launched a project, 30 million euro, focusing on mapping the gaps, so understanding how much are the technological gap that we need to cover. And we don't look just at member state level. We know the hospital often have a regional dimension, so we want to put together at least 2 or 3 member states, 2 or 3 entities, to start building pilots. From this pilot, later on, we want to expand, and once the gap is clear, understand what technology we need to sponsor to close this gap, to make the hospital more secure. So research, hospitals, and then we are building one of the largest SOX network. Is called the cybersecurity. As part of the Cybersecurity Solidarity Act, we are building a network of cross-border hubs. 3 are already in the pipeline, 2 in an advanced stage. Estonia is part of the 3rd group, which has been now granted. And these hubs will work as a first early warning point. So they will collect information from the national lab, from the local SOCs, for private SOCs, and they will share intelligence information between each other. They will share early warning attack. This is the first element. ENISA is responsible for the next one, which is the cybersecurity to the reserve. So the private company which will start activate once an attack has been detected. So a number of projects will be there to continue expanding this cross-border hubs network. Another area is helping the company to fulfill the regulation. I mentioned before AI and quantum, but there are a lot of other obligations, especially now with CRA coming. So we want to help company to have the right tool to prepare for the CRA. So not just webinar and awareness, but also really have the possibility for them to test their own product before they go for an assessment. So this is also very large. One other area which is not yet public, but will be public, actually was approved yesterday by our board, is the creation of dedicated SOCs for undersea cable. We all know what happened. We want to make sure that we start building a first entity. There will be an initial small center, but this will become a fusion center. We want to put together civilian information, military information, other type of information to really ensure that our undersea cable are controlled. This is also part of the strategy of the European Union release, I think in June. And then to conclude on the funding, we have something on dual-use technology, we have something on support. Yesterday we had the final of the cybersecurity challenge. This is the largest probably challenge of students, 14 to 24 years old. More than 35,000 students, like young hacker, were involved. We are very happy to be part of this, also providing funding, providing know-how. So I started with the network. We say we need a network to fight a network, and I want to close with the network, because nothing will work out unless we put all the elements together. And we do this by creating a special platform, the Atlas. The Atlas is our superpower. I think it's the superpower of the Union. We want to use this platform to put together all the entities, all the stakeholders. Every company who is established in the EU could be part of the Atlas. The Atlas will work as a place for us to provide you information. What are the next? What is our strategy? What are our funding opportunity? But also for you to provide feedback on what are the needs of the industry, what are the needs of the society. And it will also be a place for finding partners. We know how difficult it is to build this digital market. We want, with the platform, help this effort. So, and to conclude, everyone, regardless of the size of your company, whether you do a small software or a small app, a small startup, or you are a large corporation, and you do SOCs for government, everyone needs to play a role. So I really encourage you to, of course, check what we do, engage with an NCC, your local coordination center. In Estonia, this is at the RIA. Actually, the director is here, so engage with them. Try to see how you could, first of all, be part of the network, be part of our journey to make Europe safer and more competitive in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tagliaretti. Yeah, please. it's a good time to find a place to sit here. We have some empty chairs. We're gonna make a little change with the stage because we're gonna have a panel discussion, and we're gonna widen the perspective and look at how different nations are leading on AI, cyber resilience, and innovation policy. The next discussion will bring together national leaders who operate where the stakes are highest and the potential gains the greatest. And I remind you that we have the system called Slido, where you can ask your questions, and I hope that the moderator has time to ask them from the panelists. And now it's time to welcome our panelists, because the stage is getting ready. The panelists are Tõnu Grünberg, Dr. Clara Guerra, Paul N. Wagner, Secretary Harry Coker, and the discussion will be moderated by Jennifer Schenker.
I'm Jennifer Schenker, Editor-in-Chief of The Innovator. Welcome to the session on high stakes, high gains. As mentioned, you can take a picture of the QR code, and if there's time, we will try to take questions from the audience. I'd like to just take a minute to set the scene here. Countries that can scale technologies like AI and quantum computing will be at the forefront of harnessing the benefits of finding solutions to key challenges, from the green transition to digital biology, says a recently published report by the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. It argues that the compute that underpins them is not just a source of scientific and economic progress, but the new benchmark of global power economically and geopolitically. Just as governments needed to enable infrastructure such as roads and railways and telecommunication networks for business to thrive, investing in shared and public compute has become equally important. Compute is, in fact, slated to become the foundation of next-generation economic growth and influence, shaping economic developments as well as the future of sovereign power and international influence, according to the TBI report. So gaining access to compute and introducing cutting-edge technologies into government poses both real opportunities and real challenges. On this panel, we're going to hear from the government officials on the front lines. So to my immediate right is Secretary Harry Coker. He is Maryland Department of Commerce, coming here today from the Maryland Department of Commerce, but he's a retired CIA and NSA senior executive and former national cyber director, and he has decades of experience in national security, in innovation, and economic development. Next to him, we have Paul Wagner, the Chief Executive Officer for the Canadian Digital Service, and in his role, he's responsible for leading work to modernize digital service delivery across government departments, improving user experiences, accelerating project timelines, and building digital common components that solve common service problems. Next to Paul, we have Clara Guerra, who is Director of the Office for Digital Innovation for the Government of Liechtenstein, where she drives digital transformation across public and private sectors through pragmatic regulatory innovation, enabling frameworks, and strategic coordination. Her work focuses on blockchain, AI, and digital governance, with a strong emphasis on legal innovation, cross-sector cooperation, and building trust in digital. Next to her, we have Tony Grunberg, Deputy Secretary General for Digital Infrastructure and Cybersecurity here in Estonia. He's responsible for the civil part of Estonian cybersecurity and state digital infrastructure, including workplace, cloud, data centers, and others. So let's dive right in. In an increasingly fractured world, digital sovereignty is becoming important. How is that changing procurement, the way data is protected, and collaboration with other jurisdictions? So, Paul, let's start with you.
Sure. When you said take a picture, I thought you were saying take a picture of us. So good way to start it. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, actually, probably by now. So honor to be here. I think, in terms of digital sovereignty and sort of the change in the geopolitical landscape of the globe, from a Canadian perspective, we're focused obviously much more on, built-in Canada solutions for not only government, but also for private sector. And I think it's driving a discussion and a culture that probably should have existed, many, many years ago, excuse me, around really the interplay between private sector and public sector in Canada. So we're seeing things now, where from, let's say, an AI perspective, we have an AI strategy for the country that covers both private sector and public sector. And so it talks about commercializing AI solutions in the country, not only for government services, and certainly it will be for government services, but how do we, invest in Canada, in Canadian companies, to start to build that out. And so there's a $300 million investment fund that was created to help scale some of the AI startups in Canada. And that's going to have a follow-on effect in many, many other domains and many other industries as well. And so I think, from a sovereign perspective and thinking about digital sovereignty, and it's a loaded term. We could probably have a conversation on what digital sovereignty actually means, because we are in a very interconnected global world. And so, our previous position was around, well, the data has to be within Canada, but if the rest of the underlying infrastructure is globally connected, are we still sovereign? Is that still a sovereign, model? So I think, covering a lot there, from, commercialization of services and products to thinking about, what that means from a government perspective. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about policy at some point here in the conversation. That's a really important piece for me. I'll leave it for maybe an answer for a next question.
Okay, thank you. So, Secretary Coker, do you have a point of view on this? I saw you smiling.
Yes, I smiled when my friend and neighbor Paul talked about digital sovereignty. What is it really in this interconnected world? In my previous assignment, in recognition of the interconnected world, we had opted for digital solidarity, which is like-minded countries, democratic values that align with each other. Recognizing, again, digital sovereignty is a tough definition and tough implementation. We, frankly, were pleased that in the U.S. we recognize that when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber resilience, no one entity can do it by itself. And that takes some work for the United States to recognize that, but it's accurate, hence digital solidarity. And not only do we need our allies to be successful in cyberspace, we also need the private sector, another big leap for the U.S. to recognize that the federal government could not succeed in cyberspace without our private sector partners. So this digital solidarity and the need for partnerships helped to drive us forward. And we need to maintain that. Decades ago, it used to be where the federal government led with investment and implementation. If you look at space, if you look at the internet, you look at communications, the federal government led. Well, that's been flipped now. Our private sector partners are essential to the development of capabilities, artificial intelligence, the cloud just being two examples. So some of the changes in procurement that have come forward from that is we need to recognize that the developments are coming from outside the government, and the government's job, frankly, is to stay out of the way as best we can. In today's era, we, and the we includes, again, allies and private sector, we need to be agile to respond. And historically, and I don't think this will change, our laws have not kept pace with technology. Our laws and regulations have gotten in the way of advancement. What the government needs to do is ensure that technology serves people, number one, and then allow technology to evolve. But when it comes to some of the procurement practices on cloud, for example, we have a program in the United States called FedRAMP, which requires certification from cloud service providers, CSP, before they can connect to federal systems. It's a set of what I'll call minimum standards that all the private sector partners need to meet. That's a start. One of the fallacies there was we did not have similar standards for connectivity to state systems. Now we do have state ramp ramping up, but it's not consistent across the U.S. So that's just one of the things we're focused on, minimum set of standards. Another is changing the security mindset. As you noted, I grew up in national security, where security essentially meant physical security. And I can remember when we started to implement cloud architectures a number of years ago, our security professionals were, no, I need to see it, I need to touch it, I need to walk the fence line. So we're still evolving there, and that's back to agility. We need to understand that in today's and tomorrow's era, we'll need to continue to evolve.
Thank you. So Tonu, let me turn to you, because Estonia was a global leader in digitalizing its government. How are you thinking, and here at the conference, one of the latest programs, AI Leap, has been emphasized, and this is a program to bring AI into the public schools in Estonia. The government ended up doing deals with OpenAI and Google, because there was no European, or as yet, there's no European equivalent. How are you thinking about sovereignty?
Yeah, actually, thank you for having me here. So, hello to everybody. So, digital sovereignty is a little bit wider expression than the data sovereignty. Data sovereignty is easy to define, so it has to be here somewhere close. So your data is under your belly and you protect it. Now, the digital sovereignty is very wide, and I'm coming to this AI as well. So our problem has really been recently that we have quite a reckless eastern neighbor, as you know. And that changed a lot. So our threat picture, our resilience requirements have grown remarkably. So, what means that we are not that much concerned about data sovereignty as such, but to be resilient to any effects which any type of assault to our data centers or the territory will bring. And that actually, now we have adopted quite clear approach how we're going to solve it. So even already some time ago, last year actually was the latest revision, we have the Cloud Act, which actually gives us for the public sector even the opportunity to use the public cloud service if we want to. So usually it's not the case in most of the countries, so the public service is not really for the public cloud. It depends, but generally not. We also have developed our own state cloud, which we're now actually updating in a big time to make it really scalable, cyber-secure, manageable platform. And this state cloud we are extending outside of Estonian territory. So we are there. It's already done, but we are now this upgrade is in a way it takes some time. So our best of our minds, architects are working on this. Hope they will do a good job. I'm sure they will, and we will have a good platform. Now that said, we have the logic how we want to achieve the sovereignty or the independence on this setup. But now we are, like you said, we are quite good in e-governance, and this is all fine. So we basically say 100% all the services are online from the state side. We are ranking high in e-governance tables, and that's all fine. But actually, one thing where we don't rank high is the compute power per capita. So here we actually are quite low. So we are kind of mid-low. So we don't have the computer power. We don't have a big data centers. None of the hyperscalers are present in Estonian territory, and so on and so forth. And that's what we want to change. Not that we invite, of course, we invite everybody, please, if there is anybody for AWS and Azure, please, or Google, build this. But it's not going to, of course, happen in this way. So it takes some time. We need to be proactive, which now in Europe has a lot of initiatives which we try to be part of. And now when we come to this, let's say, this educational program we have in AI, true that the stuff we have done in AI, there is about 200 applications for public service already, which is like chatbots, all this, which really makes work more efficient. This doesn't need a lot of computing power. So it's like it's not a huge language, large language model which you need to train, and it's I don't know 100 megabits of power you need. No. This we can manage. We have enough capacity in the territory, and close with our friends in Finland, we use the, for example, Lumi consortia. We use the capacity from there, so that's fine. But now we have agreed with the OpenAI and the Google that they are a part of the educational program, and that's okay. I mean, we are not expecting to. So there is no critical data which we give away that we really should be concerned of. So that is a very specific program, and it's for how the students and the young people can really more effectively learn, and that's about this. So this is not really that much of concern. So that's maybe the short answer. Okay. Or long, whatever it was.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So, Clara, if I understood correctly, Liechtenstein hasn't developed its own AI strategy yet. But you are thinking about trying to get ahead of not just AI, but other new technologies by looking at going back to what Harry said earlier about agile regulations. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Certainly, and also from my side, it's a pleasure and honor to be here from Liechtenstein, which usually takes the people a minute to locate it on a map. Even though perhaps not in this audience, even because yesterday alone I met 4 people who have actually already been in Liechtenstein. So with a population of 40,000, that is already a meaningful percentage in our country. But having said that, the size gives us a lot of clarity. It focuses us on to think systemically and also very pragmatically about resilience and innovation and how to approach that. From the smallest to the biggest, so to speak, the problems are very similar. And when I think about digital sovereignty, what underlies it or what powers it is also coherence and smart governance. And what I mean by that is that we have various different systems, that architecture systems, institutions, regulation, and all that also then maybe even on different layers, and they rarely sync up in an ideal way. And if you think of governance like an orchestra, so I think like most administrations or all administrations, they have great musicians, but the problem is that they don't have the time to rehearse together. So if smart governance is and coherence is when actually everyone plays the same score. And how we do that in Liechtenstein is that we look at not to regulate the tech, not to regulate the hype, because we see there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of also potential, but we look at the underlying legal and economic realities, and then come up with solutions, be that front of house with regulation and front-facing innovation formats to engage with market players and our other stakeholders. And one regulation that I would like to mention is our Blockchain Act. So this is a blockchain technology regulation, but not addressing the technology as such, but it's a principle-based and technological neutral approach that focuses on really these legal and economic realities underneath the technology. And so it's an abstract level that came in rather early, if you would say, because we had it in force and application already since 2020. But it wasn't too early because actually we focused on the things that don't change. So we didn't regulate the hype or a certain use case like ICOs, but really a registration and we introduced a registration and supervision regime for blockchain crypto asset service providers, and we also introduced a civil law for tokens. And why I'm mentioning that is so it gives real clarity on actually what a token is legally and how it can be legally transferred, who has ownership when, what happens if a token gets lost, what happens if someone gets a token that has previously been stolen. So things like that, to have that in a real world, understandable and executable for judges and in the whole economy, brings a real value. So actually, I know it's now a bit of a it's counterintuitive and a counter argument what has previously been said, but it showcases that if and when done right, regulation can actually enable innovation, and it can, because it can bring trust and it can bring clarity to the whole market, to the market players, to investors. So innovators can focus on innovating and not being scared of being with one foot in jail. And that counts especially in highly regulated fields like the financial market, for example. And so there we have been quite successful with introducing regulation that enables actually innovation. And so you see innovation is not opposed to stability. I believe innovation is a precondition for stability and security. And digital sovereignty, it's been now discussed from various sides. It can show up when there is coherence, so when all these layers are functioning, are linked up, are lined up, and are working together. And because we have to think, Tono mentioned this before, in a so highly dynamic and also geopolitically uncertain times, where we are threatened on all the levels, digitally, physically, we have to think, how can we ensure stability and continuity of a state even when everything or even anything physically would disappear? And so I think of this as some digital survival architecture of the modern state, so to speak, that ensures continuity and stability in very uncertain times, and where the attacks on our systems on all the fronts are very, very real. And we find a way forward being very adaptive and agile and coherent in the digital space as well.
Thank you. So let me just quickly go back to you, Tono, because I had the opportunity to talk with Art Velsberg, the Chief Data Officer for Estonia, and he was explaining to me that Estonia is in the process of adopting a program where you have a regulatory sandbox so that companies that are working on technologies that today might actually be illegal have a safe place to test them. And one of the examples he gave was you have a company here in Estonia that wants to create automatic autonomous drugstores. And right now there's a law that says you have to have a human being in the pharmacy. And so this kind of example. And he said that he felt like this was an economic opportunity for Estonia to attract international companies to come to the country and have it serve as a test bed. So can you talk a little bit about that program and the rationale behind it?
Yes, this actually comes from the past already, that we have been being small, not that small as Liechtenstein, but still we consider us a very small country. But quite agile, so we have been very fast to adopt new things and innovate. And of course, given the fact that we didn't have any legacy, it was quite an easy task. Let's say it made things easier. So we have been a test bed for many things in the past. Even like a simple thing like the digital ID cards. So we were quite early. We are still almost the only country who has the elections. So there are few, but not really, most not. So we have done things, and also the companies have approached us to test things. That's right. And now we look at the technology is evolving, and of course AI is the next big thing. So now we are looking at opportunity, as rightly was mentioned to you, that creating the environment like sandboxing, so everybody can come here and try things. So we create the environment, legal environment first, and then of course the technical environment as well. That this can be easy place to really play around your applications and see how that works. So you don't need to take it live into your home country. You can come here. So let's see how that goes. At least we have some bets on this, and so hopefully it works.
So as Clara, both you and Tono just explained, the governments are operating in a time where there's tremendous change and disruption. New services are being introduced all the time. Here at the conference yesterday, it was announced the World Bank co-authored a paper on the use of agentic AI by governments. So you're continuously having new services, and those things expand the threat level in cybersecurity. And since we have two people with very strong backgrounds in cybersecurity here on the panel, I would love for you, Secretary Coker and Paul, to talk a little bit about how governments are handling those challenges.
Actually, I look forward to reading that paper on agentic AI. Frankly, it's a natural evolution from Gen AI to agentic. And none of us should be surprised. It'll continue. But when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber resilience, I like to keep those together because no cybersecurity is perfect, and we need to ensure that resilience is at the forefront as well. But artificial intelligence, like most revolutionary technologies, has pros and cons, opportunities and challenges. We cannot afford to back off because of the challenges. So the opportunities are there. But we need to be clear-eyed about the challenges. And when it comes to offensive cyber operations, AI will put our cybersecurity in a more challenging space. Offense, generally speaking, is easier than defense. And that's where AI is going to be a multiplier on offense, I think, sooner and more than it will be on defense. But we need to recognize that it is the reality, and we need to work through it. And we've done that. And frankly, for years in cybersecurity, in the national security arena, it's been recognized that humans cannot keep up with the threat in cyber. We need artificial intelligence to operate at the right speed, and frankly, the speed of warfare, because that's what it is. We, humans, slow it down. So we need AI to help us respond to the increasing threat level that will not go away, and we need to recognize that and leverage AI for the opportunity that it brings to cybersecurity.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to you, and then Paul, you may want to respond to this as well. You mentioned that humans can't keep up. So AI will increasingly be used to replace humans in the low-level cybersecurity jobs. So will we now have an increased demand for the higher-level positions? Because we already have like a huge gap in talent. Is it going to get worse?
I believe we'll need artificial intelligence for the higher level as well. I've worked at several agencies where literally we have been overwhelmed by data. Overwhelmed, and that's not an understatement. So we need not just agentic AI as well to keep pace. And one of the things that our great governor has said when it comes to the workforce is that we need to be ethically honest and open about the impact to the traditional workforce that AI presents. It's another industrial revolution. We need to recognize that and have a strategic approach to that.
Okay. Paul?
So, yeah, maybe I'll ask a question. We won't take a picture this way, but how many people have been involved in responding to a cyber incident? To show of hands. And keep your hands up for a second. There's not many. So everybody who doesn't have your hand up, go find one of the people that has their hand up, buy them a coffee, and ask them what it was like. It's not a fun experience. And so when I was the deputy CIO for the country a few years ago, went through too many of these cyber incidents, and some of them were AI. AI was involved with them. But I think a couple of learnings there that may be helpful. One is I don't find we exercise enough the muscle of how to detect and respond to cyber incidents. And I think thinking about AI and the speed at which attacks happen and the speed at which it moves through your environment. Even if you've tested your systems out and your people, do it again and again and again, and think about AI and think about what that looks like from a simulation perspective. Because if you're doing it for the first time in real time, it's too late. So I think you need to absolutely do that. I think transparency, Harry, you're absolutely correct in terms of transparency and trust is the currency that governments use and have with their citizens. And so when you have cyber incidents, AI or otherwise, I think being very transparent about what happened and making it part of the dialogue and using it actually as a way to inform and educate citizens around cyber hygiene, around digital literacy. It's a great opportunity. I mean, it's turning lemons into lemonade a little bit there, especially when you have a cyber incident. And I think the last piece, which when you're talking about talent, cyber is a team sport. Certainly in Canada it is. And I think that trust that needs to exist between the private sector and the public sector, there simply aren't enough cyber experts in Canada. If you split the domains between public and private, so they absolutely have to work together. And it's an ongoing evolution of a relationship. I mean, we've had situations in the past where even companies that are dealing with the government who've had cyber attacks are very unwilling to share information with government entities, our cybersecurity center, and we have experts that can actually help them and remediate situations. And they didn't want to do that because they don't want to lose shareholder value, they don't have brand, all the reasons.
Liability.
Liability, absolutely. Now, and my organization, we just went through a breach. Luckily, it was a non-material breach. Don't worry. But we had a willing partner in that, and the contract was was an old contract from 15 years ago, and it didn't stipulate anything around cyber incidents, or at least it wasn't clear enough. But they played extremely well, and we came up with a joint statement, and it was very, very well handled, both from a remediation perspective, but also from a communication to Canadians perspective. And I think there's a lot of learnings there. So not specifically about AI, but I do think if I can impress on anybody here, is to go back and exercise your cybersecurity plans. Work them through, and there's going to be gaps, and that's good. But do that in a simulated environment as opposed to having to do it in real time.
Okay, so as a follow-up question to you, and then anyone else in the panel who wants to answer, you mentioned the word trust. What do we do in a world of deep fakes when, to assure the public that messages that they're hearing from the government are really coming from those people? How do you as a government deal with deep fakes?
Yeah, so back to the digital literacy piece, and I think there's some of the Nordic countries have done a really good job of thinking about digital literacy for citizens, and how do you actually start that dialogue with your citizens, so they're not dealing with it with having received something and it's deep fake, or it's otherwise not real. I think having that discussion early and being very clear, both at the political and the bureaucratic level, because in many countries the government, and this will vary by country obviously, but the government is trusted, and we in Canada we've seen our trust go up and certainly slide post pandemic or post COVID. And so it's important that messaging, regardless of the political party in power, and the work that the bureaucracy does stays consistent in terms of the digital literacy for Canadians, I think, or for citizens. And I think from a platform perspective, the more that you actually have digital platforms that your citizens are engaging with, and demonstrating what right looks like on those platforms. I think it sets up a bit of a trust ecosystem so that private sector companies can follow suit and so forth. So there's enough resources within the government to actually start to create that dialogue with citizens. But it does, in my mind, it does start with that education piece.
Anyone else want to tackle that?
Yes. Well, I think the answer is threefold. So one, it has an absolute education layer or training, what Paul just mentioned. So educating the public, raising awareness to make that understandable. The second is the policy or regulation level. Of course, in Europe, Liechtenstein is part of the European Economic Area, so we are taking over EU digitalization legal acts and programs, amongst which the Digital Service Act, the AI Act, which foresee specifically regulation and requirements and for to tackle deepfake and fake news, and that pieces have been produced with or by artificial intelligence and so on. And then thirdly, there is the technical layer, so that we can come up with technical solutions, be that watermarking or also blockchain-based verification that ensures that where is this information, where is this data coming from, and has it been altered, manipulated throughout its life cycle. And so these are things that are helping with addressing that. But of course, it is real. Governments are under an incredible pressure, and what also Harry said, I mean, if AI already overwhelms us human beings, so you know what that does to governments. So there's a lot of fear of missing out or also not addressing the right risks in the right time frame. But I think we can do that. We just have to be agile and smart about it, playing to these three solutions and coming up also already before regulation comes into force with tests and applications, for example, for communication from the government to ensure that this is watermarked or somehow detectable who has produced that and whether it has been manipulated.
Okay, thanks. And Tono, if you want to answer that, I want you to do that. But in the interest of time, I'm also going to throw out a second question to you that anyone else can also comment on. It comes from the audience. What are your thoughts on AI being implemented in common computer applications like web browsers and MS Office? They have access to your data and may transfer it abroad. Is this a serious issue for data security?
Yeah, but let me then first just shortly tell that if we look at our statistics of cyber incidents, about 70% is phishing. So this is like just human errors because you're getting very like believable input from the bad guys and you react. Let's say you get a video call from your boss who tells you to make a transfer or something, you know, and that maybe it fake those days. It may be so believable that you need to. So this world is changing. So AI, it's a bit to that. They use AI to attack us. We need to use AI to fight back. That's it. So what comes to the AI clients or agents in applications, sure, that's the future, and we have it, for example, in our workplace. So we have made a risk analysis to all AI, like a Copilot or ChatGPT or all. So we have assessed it, and we actually we are using Copilot in our workplace for government agencies. But we know that the data actually is not leaving European soil. That at least we are quite sure. If that's enough, that's not enough. So certain information is not allowed to put there. But certain kind of, it depends on confidentiality level.
Okay, unfortunately, there's so much more to talk about. Fortunately, we're out of time, but I think, you know, the panelists will agree that there are a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities for government to use technology in new ways and introduce new and better public services and become more efficient itself. So thank you all very much for enlightening us with all of the challenges that you're dealing with. And please, let's give a nice round of applause to our panel.
Thank you.
We're going to carry on and continue our discussion on how to withstand increasing cyber and hybrid threats in a time of global tension. Our next panel brings together experts who deal with these challenges every day. And again, I'm reminding you that you can use the app Slido to ask some questions, and when they have time, they will answer them also. So please welcome to the stage Colonel Maxim Pavlyuk, Dr. Anssi Kärkkäinen, and Jacek Węgiewicz. And the discussion will be moderated by Shane Harris, who is a staff writer at The Atlantic.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you very much to our panelists for coming here to Tallinn from points beyond. It's very exciting to be here with all of you for what I'm sure is going to be a great discussion that we could fill up a lot more than the 38 or 40 minutes that we have allotted, but I'm very grateful for your time. You know, the title of this presentation of Under Pressure, How Can Europe Withstand Cyber and Hybrid Threats? It would be very easy for us to all have a conversation simply about Russia and cyber for the entire time. We'll probably focus a lot on that, but we'll try and get to some of the other notable hybrid threats that are increasing this kind of strategic pressure that we're seeing so much in recent years. We'll give everyone a little time to find your seats, please. Thank you. But I do want to start with our colleague from Ukraine, Max, because you have an answer to a question that is posed in this title about withstanding cyber threats. And if we think back to the beginning of Russia's second invasion of Ukraine a few years ago, one of the things that I was writing a lot about when I was a reporter at the time at the Washington Post was this expectation that Russia was going to launch massive cyber attacks that would knock out critical infrastructure in Ukraine and would be, sort of a devastating piece of the war. It's not to say that there have not been major relentless cyber attacks on Ukraine, but to a much less significant degree, it seems like, than people were anticipating in the worst case scenario. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how it was that Ukraine seemed to be so ready for that and defended that, and how you've adapted over time to the different kinds of Russian cyber attacks that have been a component of their offensive.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. The thing is that it was like a common expectation that the Ukrainian information communication systems will fall down with the first hours of the full-scale invasion was obvious because of the massive scale of Russian attacks on our critical infrastructure and other systems much prior. So starting from 2015, we faced the great outage in the western part of Ukraine when there was a cyber attack of our electric grid power station. After that, we faced a couple of others, and the very well famous NotPetya was started from Ukraine as well. So it's actually taught us well to be ready for this kind of threat and do our best to improve our cybersecurity capabilities, not only within the military, but also throughout the whole state. And we were not alone in this, huge task to be solved. Our friends, partner nations, particularly Estonia, led the international support for Ukraine to improve and mature our cybersecurity system. Also within the country, they were taking the political decisions. So we've established under the National Security Council, we've established the National Cybersecurity Coordination Center, which became a kind of a command structure for all defense forces components, how to coordinate our activity within the cyber domain, as well as the owners, state and private, those who are having responsibility on the critical infrastructure object, they were also in. So there were requirements had been set, the specific budget was identified for those needs. And at the end of the day, we managed to do it. But you were right saying that it was not 100% success. Much prior, before the 24th of February 2022, we had massive, let's say since the beginning of the year 2022, we had massive attempts to break down in our information communication systems, or disrupt the functionality of the vital systems within the Ukraine. It was a phenomenal support from the private sector as well. The U.S. companies such as the Cloudflare, for instance, just protected in a day, or frankly within the night, because we had negotiation during the night in Ukraine, but that was obviously a day in the U.S. So we managed to get their support and to improve the security of our information resources in the internet. And others, I don't want to name them all because I'm afraid that I will forget one of those. So it was a massive support from the Western world, and that is a common result. Before that, we also, I almost forgotten to say, but we also were able to send our personnel for the specific training and courses, and it is also international support with it. So it's not only a Ukrainian result, it's a result of all three wars, should I say.
Yeah, it did seem like a great model of collaboration.
Absolutely.
Between governments, public and private sector, and it was very successful.
And we did our best in the payback, so our MISPs or other systems, we share those indicators of compromise, so our partner nations are able to prepare themselves for this type of attacks also. So we shared everything we received, and this is the way how we cooperate in payback.
On the theme of collaboration, Jacek, I know this is very much what you focus on with Digital Poland Association. I wonder if there are kind of lessons learned from the Ukrainian experience and maybe what you see and what Max is describing about how you all take this approach in Poland when it comes to private and public sectors. Because, I mean, you cannot secure infrastructure unless both of those sides are working together. It's just, there's no way to do it, really.
True, thank you for this invitation. I must say Poland's story is quite similar because we also had the massive attacks on Polish infrastructure, and I'm saying also from the private business perspective, because this is Digital Poland Association is the association of digital industry. And the Poland story is that the telecom system and also the financial system, the banks have been also attacked before 24th February 22. And but we had this opportunity to also prepare, because I believe this is quite common in this eastern flank of NATO, that actually we were all expecting this, because we know this difficult neighborhood with Russia. And the story began in 2019, in fact, when we were able to establish the very well working public-private partnership within the Polish government, started by Samsung and then joined by many other companies, like it's over 30 right now, both international and also local, but also NGOs that are sharing not only this quite basic information about the threats, vulnerabilities, incidents before the general public knows about it, but we also invest a lot as private companies in training the government officials. Right now it's several thousands of civil servants that have been trained by the industry for free. We are not actually earning a single dollar on that. We believe this is a kind of our contribution that we that we also in fact bring us the right environment, safe environment where we can do business. And this proves that it works. You may know that Poland is also the frontline country. Poland has been the #1 target of the ATP groups, and we are also as the country APT group, sorry, we are also as the country quite unique, because we are openly sharing who is attacking us, and that's this is official data that #1 country is Russia, #2 is Belarus, and they are quite this is very visible. But then for some maybe surprising, for some not, but the #3 country is China. Also, when you see the ransomware attacks, Poland is the #1 country globally as the target of threats, even before the United States. So I believe this cooperation between the industry here and the government really brings first this cybersecurity capabilities, but also, which is not less important, the cyber resilience, because there is a lot in education, and people are aware that the vulnerabilities are actually important for their lives and for their businesses. The last data that I will share here is like the number of companies that declared that they have been attacked in Poland, including very small companies like micro companies, is 83% for last year.
83%.
83%.
Yeah, so basically everyone. Yeah. Anssi, I want to turn to you on this from Finland's experience, which probably what our colleagues are saying here will resonate with yours as well. Finland also being no stranger to ransomware. attacks, which have been pretty significant there. From your perspective, maybe pick up on this notion of the threat actors. Jacek mentioned Russia and Belarus, no surprise. China is sort of in the mix. What does the threat picture look like for Finland exactly? Who are the main actors here and that are coming at companies and the government?
Yes, thank you. Overall situation, we actually already published 2022 when actually war in Ukraine started, that the threat level, cybersecurity threat level in Finland is increased, and we actually, our center together with Finnish intelligence service, we published that we see that the activity is higher than before, and we actually refreshed that announcement just a month ago, that there is no change. Activity is quite high. What it comes to main actors, I think they are already mentioned here. Mm-hmm. And of course we work every day to mitigate threat together with other authorities, with companies and even with citizens. And maybe I highlight in this our comprehensive security model, which we've been already building decades. Which the idea behind that is to bring government, private sector, and citizens together and work together to prepare and build resilience. And that works also in cybersecurity side. It's very very powerful to work that way. For example, with authorities, we do cooperate very closely, meet each other almost every day, every week, at different levels: technical level, operational level, also strategic level. Also, what we are pretty proud of is our ISAC groups, for example. We already have today over 20 ISAC groups in Finland, which bring together private sector, critical infrastructure actors or companies, and those are like sectoral ISACs, like we have one for finance companies, one for water supply, one for energy, etc. Those all are voluntary based, so there is no national law to say that okay, you have to do this and this, but it's all voluntary based and it's very very good to see that also companies can come together and talk about cybersecurity issues, share information, share best practices, etc. And I believe that this is very very powerful networks. And then the third part of the cooperation is of course international cooperation, as already mentioned here in this panel. So we work with the other government or governmental organizations or international authorities, but also with those international companies like big ones, because what they do, they see the, let's say, the whole world, although they have a global view to threat landscape. So it's very important to get also information and data from them, and also all kind of small or bigger communities, hacker communities, networks, etc. are very very beneficial.
Max, a lot of people look at Ukraine and think of it as sort of right now a kind of people refer to it as a laboratory of warfare, right? We're seeing drone technology. I mean, this has become such a huge facet of the war. Things that are playing out on the ground there now are testing new technologies, new capabilities. Talk a little bit about how much cyber plays a role in that. I mean, is Ukraine kind of becoming, is it fair to say Ukraine is sort of a battlefield where we're seeing these threat actors, obviously mostly Russia, Belarus, bringing out their best capabilities, their newest tricks and techniques? I mean, are we seeing things there that are kind of debuting or appearing before we see them spread to other countries?
Well, fair enough. It's a kind of ongoing competition, and you can hardly say that the effective weapon, which was like a couple of days before, is going to be that effective a week after. So there are cases that, let's say, in this kind of a confrontation, we are inventing for instance, CW asset that today is showing the good results, but the enemy is, adopting to the change of the situation, and the day after this asset is no longer effective. So it caused the problem with the scaling of the new equipment. We cannot actually, produce them in a certain quantity because on the day they're produced, they already are outdated. So that's a challenge, and we definitely can say that this, every war is a kind of a lab or a polygon for the new technologies and etc. And the cyber today is playing, on my personal opinion, a vital, if not a crucial role on it, because each and every, robotic system or autonomous system or whatever, which is from the 21st century assets of war, is having its own, firm, hard, and the software in. So the cyber requirements for like a minimum for the protection of the asset, for the protection of the system that this asset is using, because what is the drone? The drone is collecting data. Where the data are, they are in the specific system. So we also have to consider about the protection of the system, and so on, so on, so on. So this is a huge loop where the cyber element is in and is playing a vital role. The price for not paying attention on it could be high, because despite the asset is quite effective, if it's not protected, it could be either useless or even used against yourself. And there are cases on our ongoing war with Russia, and unfortunately not only successfully from our side but from the enemies as well. So this is really important thing, and you have to pay attention on it. That's for sure.
I want to ask, Jacek, and then maybe Anssi too. What are you seeing as the most targeted sectors? I mean, when we talk about cyber threats, we're talking about, as you just described, Max, a whole range of things. Anything that is embedded with technology could conceivably be a target. But are there areas where you are seeing foreign actors or even non-state actors really going after the most? Are we talking, is it financial crime? Is it critical infrastructure? What is the biggest target set?
Yeah, I believe in Polish case everything is a target, but one specific area that I would like to raise attention to is part of the so-called critical infrastructure that is very dispersed, and it's not as such centralized like the telecom or financial sector, and this is the water supply, because in fact we are observing in the recent months so many attacks on very local water purification plants that are governed by the local municipalities that in fact never decided to invest in cybersecurity before, because making the streets for the citizens was more important and more visible to the taxpayers in the end, and also to the voters then. So basically, this is the area that everyone is focused right now. This small companies that are working on water, whether this is purification or this is like the even pools for people. The fact is that water is something that we need most as humans, and we are built like 75% out of it. And they are this quite of simple, but still according to the law and according to the directive, even the European directive, this is part of this critical infrastructure. Even if dispersed, this needs to be protected, and there is we see that probably it has been understood by the enemy as a weak point in the recent months, and is right now under. This
sounds alarming. Is this? I don't want to make any news here necessarily, but is this something that you all presume is being directed by Russian actors as some sort of preparation or some sort of attack on the civilian infrastructure? I mean, what's behind this?
Yeah, this is also according to the official data. This is the target of this advanced persistent threats organizations. So the state actors. Yeah, that's what I said. It's like I believe this is part of the cyber war that we are part of.
Yeah. Anssi, maybe you want to elaborate on what you're seeing from the Finnish experience, but what is your big target set in Finland right now?
Yeah, I think that more or less every sector is target, but maybe the top ones spend like defense industry, government, and also finance sector in Finland. Because if I think what we've been seeing during, let's say, last 12 months or something, it's and the most serious cases we have had. One is, for example, city of Helsinki, our capital, hacked, or huge data breach. One dairy company in Finland, also big league, and huge DDoS campaign against one Finnish major banks. And so it's hard to always say who's the number one, but because it also we see what we see, and of course there is lots of attempts for sure, but it's also the capability to see and detect things also. Yes.
Does the government of Finland have a policy for how you would respond to a major attack on a civilian infrastructure that causes economic damage, loss of life? I mean, would that be viewed as an act of war? And if so, what is the commensurate or proportional response to that?
Yeah, I think today we don't have that clear, let's say, procedure to say right away, or what are the responses, or that there is a certain level after which we declare war, for example. But how we respond is from our point of view is that when we get the notification that okay, there is maybe an incident, what we and many times in cybersecurity or cyber defense, you don't know right away how big are the damages, for example. You just see something and then you start investigating, and then you probably find like that. Okay, now we are losing like hundreds of thousands of personal data pieces or something. So that's a bit challenging to say something like day zero or first day, that okay, what really is happening or happened. So what we do, we typically ask, for example, in this city of Helsinki case, we just ask them that how you see, do you need help? Do you have any third parties to help you or support you? Have you technical capabilities? Do you need some support in communications, etc.? And in that case, actually our experts were in those city of Helsinki data centers, investigating technical environment and trying to find out what's happening there. But in some cases, we just when we ask, they many times they just say that okay, they can handle it by themselves, and our role is smaller in those cases.
When I first started writing about cybersecurity back when it was fairly new in the early 2000s, and the only people really paying attention to it were experts like yourselves, and it hadn't gotten this big public awareness yet. One of the things that people often drew attention to was the risk of information operations, information attacks. And we were talking about things like propaganda, right? Things that governments had experience with, you know, in the battlefield, not in a digital space, but maybe more in a real space or a paper space. It strikes me that information operations is very much present in the cyber domain right now. And people probably have more of a direct experience with that in their day-to-day lives than they do on an attack on critical infrastructure or something. I mean, in the United States, we saw this in 2016 with Russian interference in the election, which we are now relitigating in the United States for some reason, as if it didn't happen. But this has really become just sort of, now people understand the idea of actual fake news, or people trying to persuade them, or people pretending there's someone that they're not. And it's extremely confusing for your average user. I'd like maybe the three of you to kind of reflect on where information operations has fit in now to this idea of a cyber or a hybrid threat, and how you see that playing out in your particular countries or your areas of responsibility. I mean, Max, maybe you want to talk about this in, obviously in Ukraine, it's probably of a different magnitude. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, well, that's a wide question. So I should probably start from the beginning, when it was like even prior to 2014, when Ukraine was under huge, massive propaganda and information operation, coverage. Let's say from the enemy state, from Russian Federation. All our TV channels, radio broadcasters were full of Russian contacts. The most popular singers and film actors were from Russia, and etc. And those narratives were just from each and every source of information. And it probably was the reason why the Little Green Men were so successful in 2014 in Crimea Peninsula, because nobody believed that the country who is singing so good and playing football with us is unable to attack and to seize the territory of independent state in 21st century. Later on, it became more sophisticated. It became more devastating in terms of effects. And today we are having the multi-domain warfare against our enemy, where information and cyber is no longer the most dangerous and no longer the most effective. Like yesterday night, Ukraine capital Kiev city was suffered against massive air raid, and our electric power grid was hit. And we are anticipating that the half of the Kiev city is going to be out of heating system. This is now the reality of Ukraine, and the information or whatever other hybrid, so-called hybrid threat is no longer the number one what we are thinking about. But until Europe and until other democratic world is not suffering those physical damages, they should really pay attention to this threat. And most probably we did wrong, and it's actually proved because of the war had been started. So in order not to make the same mistake like we do, the Europe have really reconsider the attendance to this hybrid and cognitive threat what we have today. Cyber today is helping information operation as an amplifier. So the narrative that the enemy produced is multiplying thousand millions times via the cyber domain, let's say like that. So the social media, the other info sources via internet is spreading this, disinfo or propaganda messages to the target audiences specifically. The AI is actually making it more sophisticated as well, coming back to the topic of the whole Tallinn Digital Summit. And the deep fakes became much more professional than they were at the beginning, so it's really quite difficult to realize what is true and what is not. A couple of days ago, and actually we shouldn't forget about the other dimension of the hybrid threat, which are those, I call them little green drones. We can now see the evolution of this hybrid threat from the little green man in Crimea and the little green drones in European countries. And the President von der Leyen a couple of days ago said that it is a hybrid warfare. It's not a hybrid threat, right? It's written in our topic. It's already a warfare. So it is the next step. There is no peace anywhere. It's unpeace period. Let's call it like it is. And our peaceful assumptions are no longer effective and are no longer, working. So there is a summary of Information Institute for Strategic Research is saying that Russia is already waging the unconventional war against Europe, and its aim is, has been to to use the mechanism of subversion, substitute, sabotage, espionage, covert actions, you name it. So there's a great number of tools in their use. What is the purpose? The purpose is to destabilize the European governments, to undermine the public support for Ukraine via imposing costs, social and economic one, to the Europe, and also to weaken this collective ability to counter the Russian aggression. So these are the main purposes. So today it is probably the number one priority, and I do hope this is the next generation of it, which is in the traditional physical domains like Ukraine is facing today, will never be a destiny for the European countries. That is why we are fighting, and I believe that is why you are supporting us with that. So thank you for that.
Ansi, can you talk a bit about the information operations component of this and how you all think about countering it?
Yes, I agree totally what Max said. It's you can use cyber tools to spread propaganda and fake news and information, and it's very challenging because of we have that many channels to do that, and it's so easy in today's world when we have internet covering the whole globe. So that challenges us. What I think the best way to mitigate that threat is to educate people. Yeah. Educate people, and that's what we've been trying to do in Finland, to educate people and build that kind of capability to kind of compare or be a little bit critic, how do you say, critical thinking against those messages you get, because we have lots of false information or propaganda, or how you call it, in every channels, and you have to be very aware that okay, now this maybe looks nice, but it's all fake, and also somehow trying to find out what's the real source of the information also, and where it comes from. But like Max said, AI is going to challenge us even more, because it will be very even more hard to separate correct and false. But in that environment, I also believe that those, and I hope that when we have those like social media platforms, technical platforms, that we also regulate or somehow push them to also develop the capabilities to filter, so to say, that kind of false information also, because if you give that all responsibility to individual, it's very challenging. And then all technical platform service providers or others are doing nothing, and it's all up to a single individual that is that correct or not.
You're putting your finger on something that's in the United States anyway, is a very sensitive political discussion about whether or not we put this responsibility on social media companies to filter or to not. I mean, some people will call it censorship, some people call it content moderation. I mean, it has been an incredibly difficult policy challenge. I mean, Jacek, maybe you have thoughts on that in the Polish experience, and maybe and your own views on the information dynamic here in this, what is, I think, clearly no longer a threat, but actually is the state of conflict, where it's playing out in the world of ideas too, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was pretty much well described by both my panel colleagues. For sure, we live in a world that is post-true world, so everything may be true and everything may not be true, and people just got confused. And the major power of democracy is the free speech, but it's also the major weakness. And there is no simple solution to that. Ansi told something very, very, very wise: education. We all have the need for the digital skills. We are all, having in every country, I believe, these programs of digital literacy. But I believe the major skill that we all need in democracies, it's also digital, but it's also quite classic skill, is it's the critical thinking. And I believe we're not performing well on that as societies. I'm talking about my country. It could be much better. I believe this should be very much in these digital times of the social media when we already had the troll farms, but it's gone. Right now we have the AI that actually replaced the troll farms. And me personally, I know people, you wouldn't believe that you remember in the second half of September in Poland, we had over 20 unidentified flying objects on our sky. In Estonia, you had the identified.
Yes. Identified very close up.
Fighter jets. But I personally know people who believe they were struck by Ukraine to Poland. So these drones. So. It's very difficult. Everyone is fed by his own information bubble, and we need to really put a lot of effort in education, in educating, young generation. But this will bring results in 20 years from now, believe me. So there is no immediate response to that. We are in crisis. We have to invest, and over time, not short time. I believe this will work. Not now.
Max, actually, it just struck to my mind that it could be like a two messages in conclusion for that part of this hybrid warfare discussion. That for Europe, it is vital to understand that like tackling the tactics of the enemy in terms of information operations and following the same TTPs against trying to debunk those fakes is not the successful way. It will lead to nowhere. Europe must remain open with their values. This is something what Russia is trying to target. So there is very important to save this value what is making difference between us and the enemy. So remain open, but not defenseless, that for sure. On the other hand, as for me, as for military, this is the worst case scenario when we receive the unclear tasks or uncertain rules of engagement or something. So what I'm trying to say is that it is the bad words in use like threshold, like gray zone, like, red lines, whatever. And it is already noticeable, not only for us in Ukraine, but for local citizens here in Europe. This green zone is becoming wider and wider with the new challenges. So for those who are supposed to protect you, I'm talking about the militaries, they have to have the clear instructions. So what is the sign or what is the mark when they have to use their power to protect the nation? So somebody is saying that must be a casualties. We already had a casualty, so nothing happened. So somebody is saying that it could be a penetration of the critical infrastructure. We had it as well. I'm not calling you to war fighting with Russia for today. What I'm trying to say is that you have to be honest with yourself. Saying you, I'm saying the European government. So understand what are those limits that you will not beyond. You will not go beyond. Russia will go as far as you let them go. We've already checked it out back in Ukraine. So reconsider your main pillars of your security and realize what will be your threshold. You will never cross it through. Thank you.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time, but I think that's a very good place to stop. And I'm glad that we ended on a note of thinking about what countries can be doing proactively. So that the title of this was, how do we withstand cyber threats? I don't want this to leave people in a feeling that all you can do is be in a defensive crouch and wait for it to be over. So these are very excellent solutions that you all are putting on the table, and I'm grateful for your time.
Thanks, Chef.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
I'm the one who asked you 3 questions about this. I got into a few of them. No, I mean, I was guessing that you probably had them on.
But I saw people were interested, so that's good to know.
I'm using Carmen. Thank you.
You already answered.
We're going to move on with the next session. So,
sorry.
Misters, our last conversation on this stage is about the people who bring ideas, talent, and vision together. the super connectors who are shaping the future through collaboration and leadership. Again, we use Slido. If you have any questions, then use the QR code. It's a movement of masses right now, so let's take a second to let some of the people out of the salon and new people in. The panelists of the last panel of the day are Steffi Czerny, Dan Berger, and Ricardo Mesquita. And moderating the discussion is again Jennifer Schenker.
To attend it, I think at the beginning.
Bringing future change through vision, community. So I'm just going to take a second to frame the discussion. All of us have had the chance to live most of our lives during an absence of war and relative prosperity. But the world is shifting and not necessarily in a good direction. Thanks to deepfakes and social media, we're no longer sharing the same reality. Okay, thanks. Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Cyber attacks are increasing. So are the use of drones to kill and create havoc. AI could take our jobs, rob us of our humanity, and increase the digital divide. All of this is true, but we have a choice. Succumb to despair or dream big. And this panel will focus on the power of communities to build bridges and collectively build a better future. It's my pleasure to introduce Steffi Czerny, my friend, director and founder of DLD Media, Dan Berger, CEO and co-founder of Frontier Collective, and Ricardo Mesquita, managing director of Endeavor Portugal. So let's start by each of you just describing your communities. Steffi, I'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Steffi, and I founded 20 years ago a conference network called DLD. DLD stands for Digital Life Design, and it's not a tech conference. It's not a business conference. It's not a politic conference or science conference. It's not an art conference, but each bucket is important to the network of DLD. I think it's in our times, which are so fast and so complex, we need to hear different voices. We have to leave our buckets. We have to leave our comfort zones. We have to be curious and engaged. But you can't be curious if you live in your bubble. You have to look out of your system and get the news from different people. So I did this, and I bring people together from the various fields, and it's fun for me. I like people, and I like to listen to them, and somehow I like to define patterns. Good startups have sometimes the same patterns. They are driven. Artists are sometimes ahead of their time. So I take them as catalysts for societal change. Just to give you some examples, we have 2007, we had Mark Zuckerberg. Nobody knew him then. He had 2 million users, only 2 million users at stage. He said, maybe we will have more users soon. Oh, you know, Mark Zuckerberg. A young singer, art is so important for me. From New York, she was very shy, but on stage she was very extroverted. And I was, oh my God, I don't know. And she wrote me a thank you letter. Thank you, Steffi, for having me. It was an amazing experience to be at DLD. And I dumped the letter. Too bad. It was Lady Gaga. But then nobody knew her. I can go on for stories. I don't want to bore you. But you know, in former times they had their salons, this society lady. I'm not a society lady. I'm a curious housewife from a little village, and I love to bring people together.
And as somebody who has been attending your events for 20 years, you know, you connect to the unexpected, and it's always very, very special. So.
Thank you. I love to. Who of you know Kara Swisher? And who of you know Scott Galloway?
Oh yeah.
They met at DLD, for example.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, Dan, tell us about Frontier Collective.
Thank you. I'm Dan Berger, CEO of Frontier Collective. So I was, really bringing people together about 10 years ago in the VR airspace. Probably a decade too early. The technology still hasn't really taken off, but what I really saw was incredible potential with a lot of this innovative frontier technology. So I ended up starting the Frontier Collective to bring together all these technologies that are going to be at the cusp of mainstream adoption. Basically now, it's really starting to shift. So AI, climate tech, robotics, mobility, and climate tech. Really looking at how can we bring these people together to look at, instead of creating silos, can we connect people and bring together these interconnected communities from around the world? Locally, back home in Canada, we really look to help our ecosystem and try to drive growth within Vancouver, and really trying to push policy and investment into the startup community over there. So through that is connecting my global community with the local community, and I'm finding more than ever now we need to connect more globally. It's not a local, regional game anymore.
So come to DLD.
I would love to. I'd be honored. So, and I think, people from all different types of walks of life, especially what you do, is going to be more important, because then we'll have more diverse sets of thinking, and, be able to kind of stew that up to ensure that we can build a brighter future.
So, Ricardo, talk about Endeavor, please.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I mean, Endeavor is a global organization, a global network of entrepreneurs. It's a global network of trust, which I think is a key word in the way we relate to each other globally. My journey with building these networks started long ago, after 2007, 2008 crisis. Portugal was living a very difficult time, and we started sort of the grassroots process of making what the country has become. I was part of a large group of people, a collective, that helped develop some of the tools that allowed for companies to establish themselves, and for entrepreneurs to also foster their teams and blossom from there. Fast forward, I ended up getting across Endeavor in Chile, and then in Miami, and then in Madrid. And then post-COVID, I helped fundraise and founded, as founding MD, the group in Portugal. We've been running for 2.5 years. Part of the work I do on a daily basis is talk to entrepreneurs and foster those connections as well. Before we came in, Stan was talking to us, and he was sharing. We all learn from each other, which I think is a fundamental aspect of the work we do, because if you don't put people together, and necessarily different people, different generations, different gender, different geographies, it's very difficult to actually establish that dialogue.
Let's talk about the power of serendipity. When you start putting together different groups of people, can you think of some examples that from your networks you already mentioned Steffi, Kara coming together with Scott. What about you, Dan or Ricardo?
Yeah, I think something that's very present right now in my country. I'm Portuguese, born and raised, many years away from Portugal, now back, is the fact that you have the locals and then you have the new Portuguese who are coming in, entrepreneurs, either building their businesses, they came in with their families, their kids go to school there. And you have investors, and this is happening across the country. There's sort of a concentration around the Lisbon area, but happening across the country. And the fact that we're looking into establishing a bridge between those two worlds so that there's transfer of knowledge, transfer of capital, there's learning from each other, and to make it less of a transient and transactional sort of effect and more of a, you get established, you understand that there will be in a generation a very different sort of demographics and population. So you really want everybody to learn from each other and foster that connection. So we do this. Obviously, we do this first and foremost with entrepreneurs. That's the founders that we work with. But I think there's a multiplier effect and a positive spillover to the overall society and community.
So let's talk about the role of not just networks, but cities as super connectors. Do you feel like Lisbon is taking on that role?
It certainly is living its own momentum right now. I think there's a myriad of reasons why that is happening. There's fiscal incentives. But I think the state of the world, and in particular after COVID, I think a lot of people realized that they were keen on finding a place where they could move in, not just for business reasons, but also for family. And I think the drivers became a little bit different. So now you come across, there's not a single week that I don't meet someone new, just move in from, multitude of countries, from the US, from Turkey, Brazil, from, so many places around the world. I think being able to build on top of that and actually develop a healthy ecosystem and community is the challenge right now.
Well, what about Vancouver and Munich and the communities that are evolving there?
Yeah, with Vancouver, we're lucky. We're super close to Silicon Valley. It's a 2.5-hour flight and 2.5-hour flight to LA. So we have the ability to, connect with various ecosystems that are connected to capital. So for our startups that are trying to just, fight to stay alive, we can really connect with the communities down there in Seattle as well to ensure that our startups can access capital and scale their companies. But in Canada, we have this issue around taking risks, and I think that's something that we need to evolve. Canada's known to be very friendly, and we love that about ourselves. But we need to take bold leaps now, and being able to create community in this environment. Even though with the shitstorm that's happening in the U.S. right now, we do still need to really connect with the U.S. ecosystem, because that's where the risk capital is. And if we're going to build and grow our ecosystem in Vancouver, we really need to kind of think globally and to think more around the U.S. But now we need to look at other ecosystems to connect with, like Portugal or Germany, and look at other ways to ensure that our startups get access to the leaders in those spaces.
So I have a question.
Let me talk about Munich.
Sorry.
Munich in the heart of Europe. Munich is the city of Audi and BMW, of Siemens, of you name it, for MAN, big industry, German industry. But Munich is also the city of quantum physics, of fusion energy. It's also the city of art, of academy, Lehmbach-Haus. Kandinsky started to make modern art in Munich. So I think it's very important to mix And we live at the Alps, and we have amazing startups. We have 9 unicorns brought out of our Munich Technical University. Imagine 9 unicorns. And, you know, Silicon Valley is nice, but we should be proud of Europe. Not only of Munich, we should be proud of Berlin, we should be proud of Lisbon. We underestimate the power of connections, of connectivity. You mentioned serendipity. I think serendipity is something you can force. How can you force it? You have to be open for the moment. You have to be curious, very curious. And you have to be curious about the theme which drives you. My theme is people. Who are the people who are going to change the world? Who are the ones? How do I find them? We had Sam Altman 3 years ago in Munich. 3 years ago, Sam Altman was, for insiders, of course, everyone knew Sam Altman, but the public didn't know him. How did we find him? It's this is what drives me, and what I think drives us. You, Jennifer, you're a journalist. This drives you too, don't you think so?
Yes, absolutely. And I wonder, and question is really for you, Steffi, and for you, Carter. I'm wondering if we are at this moment. So, there's been a lot of talk at this conference about the need to move from national borders to create a real Europe. And today, Europe is absence of war. It's a concept. It's not a feeling. We have to be proud of, Europe, but we also have to define what does Europe stand for. And I think that, the people here in this room, I think that young people in Europe that are part of the DLG community, are part of your network, are the ones that can do what Brussels and politicians have failed to do over decades, which is inspire these young people to say, we don't want an AI that is, based on cutthroat capitalism or totalitarianism. We want an AI that encompasses European values. So let's go build it. What do you think?
Yeah, so maybe and another word, just taking on what Steffi was saying as well, is intentionality. I think if we put the purpose and we aim to actually accomplish something, I think it gives it much more power in the way we connect. So just to give you a sense of our presence in Europe, of Endeavor, we have now 10 countries, and not necessarily the most obvious one, so that we're in Southern Europe, so there's a lot of affinity: Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece. And then we have an office in Dublin and in Ireland. And then the interesting thing is that there's also a presence in Poland, the Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Romania. And with my peers in that particular region, I've been learning a lot because they live the daily challenges, and they see it through the lens of entrepreneurship. And how can we empower entrepreneurs to actually transform economies and show that it's possible through resilience and continuously trying to build something new out of countries that are not necessarily on their best shape. And you see that's possible. There's obviously an alignment of, founders have gone through similar things at different stages, so they tend to support each other more openly. They're within I am aware that I'm within, in a way, in some shape or form, a bubble of. But I think it's possible to enlarge it, and it's possible to use the same values or the same drivers to actually build this in a broader scale. And some of these gatherings that we go to, I mean, we've been seeing for the last day and a half what is happening here as well. And I think you sense in this room and in all the other conversations the power of connection as well. And I think that if I take something from being here in Tallinn, which I haven't been in a long time, and I see the transformation of the city, is that the power of connection.
That's amazing.
That's more important than ever. We are living through a loneliness epidemic, and I'm not sure if any of you have read Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, but it talks about social capital. And back in the day, in the the 50s and 60s, you'd have clubs, and you'd join a bowling club, or you'd join like the Lions Club, and you'd meet people there that don't think similarly to you, but you're able to have dialogue and discourse with them. And I think we need to go back to that. We need to really look at how can we, find those third spaces to connect. And I think the four of us here really build these containers to make serendipity and connection happen. And as we build startups and help startups move forward, I think that journey is very, very lonely, and I think we need to create these spaces to make sure that that we can really make these connections happen and create the spaces to make serendipity happen, essentially.
I hate clubs. I hate clubs. I tell you why. Because clubs are imploding systems. They are closed. Closed clubs are terrible. I think we should be much more open-minded and integrate many, many clubs in our world. So we have a variety of interests, of people, of generations, as you said. I think it's important that we get this amazing change of what AI will bring us right. I think we have to dive into a new kind of enlightenment. We have to take the elder generation, which I belong to, but also the young generations, in a positive way. We shouldn't make them fear and make them afraid. We should give them positive optimism about their future. If we of course, we have a lot of problems right now, but what can we do? We can engage with an open mind. Each one of us, in the village, in the community you live, in the work you work, should be open to the changes and not hide like an ostrich in the sand. Put your head in. You should be open to learn, and we should communicate this openness much more than we should downgrade it.
I think you've hit on something super important, Steffi. I was really surprised, a bit shocked, at this breakfast yesterday morning that Meta organized. Someone there was talking about a recent poll in Europe that of citizens across the European countries, and in almost all cases, when the citizens were asked to rank what was most important to them, technology was at the absolute bottom of the stack. And, of course, politicians are going to respond to what the citizens want. So I think there's a problem here, because we have to change the narrative, and we also have to change the focus. Because if we're only going to be talking about how AI is going to make business more productive, and the future of work, and how AI can, make better killing machines, people are not going to make that a priority. We need to talk about what does AI mean to life, not just to work, but to life. How is it going to improve our lives, and what can it do for us? Somebody even, who is kind of in my network orbit asked me at the dinner the first night I arrived, we were talking about the AI race, and he said, but why is it important that we win? Like, what's the goal? And I think we've forgotten that we need to answer those fundamental questions if we want to bring everybody along for the ride.
Yeah, we need to lean into the humanity. We're losing out on the IRL experiences, right? And I look at, for example, Paris Station F, where it's essentially a factory where startups and the community can get together and get the experience, but the mentorship and the tools that they need to connect, but without doing it in these silos. And I think we're moving towards a humanity revolution, because people are going to clamor away from technology and try to get more into the analog future. And I think that's a good thing. But with the advent, with AI sort of taking over, we really need to look at how do we really connect with the human and the humanity aspect, because AI is going to put us further away from each other and disconnect us more than ever.
So the emphasis needs to be not only on like the human aspect, which is very important, but also on how we're going to use AI. How are we going to use it for good?
Maybe I'll pick on. I don't know if you saw the conversation yesterday with the co-founder of Mistral AI, Arthur.
No, I was on.
That was really powerful because talking about a new generation. He's born in '92. And he was very straightforward in the sense of saying, look, we need to build our own structure in Europe because we want to have AI sovereignty. We definitely want to make sure that we have the tools we would want to and the independence to actually do that. And I think that level of pragmatism and it's not a usual and in a way it's very sort of eye-opening as well. Because I think he's in many ways right in what he's pursuing, and let's see if that becomes one of the initiatives that actually brings Europe more aware and closer together. I think the narrative around what technology, because using the word and the survey you mentioned needs to change as well. We need to have other people. So if you elevate some of the people building things and building for good, and they become references, their voice can be heard. That happens at the DLD. That happens elsewhere in Europe. And in that sense, others can relate to that and actually become the narrative a little bit more across the board, rather than in sort of a very niche kind of environment, which I think it's in many ways it still is in Europe.
And Dan, and for Vancouver, you're bringing people from different disciplines together. Is that resulting in new solutions that are helping humanity?
Yeah, we do an event at South by Southwest in Austin every year, and we bring a number of Canadian startups to be able to showcase what they do. So for me, I see a lot of potential in a lot of these founders and want to give them a platform to be able to showcase their solutions to global audiences. So I had this company called Urban Logic, and they presented their AI solution in front of all these amazing corporates and executives and investors that were there. And literally, as the founder got off the stage, they met with their current client who they just recently closed a $100 million deal together. So just if you're able to create that container where that serendipity and magic can happen, good things will happen. For me, I look at more about the human connection, where it's more about getting out of the surface level and getting deep. That's where you get them really meaningful connections, even if it eventually leads into a deal or an investment. It's not usually around that how it really starts. It really starts around just creating that container where people feel like they can just be themselves, and then magic can happen. So that's really kind of the sweet sauce within the events that we do to bring people together.
Okay, Steffi, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, maybe. I regard AI as a tool and as a culture technology. I think it's like reading or writing or doing math. We have to embrace it, and our kids, my grandchildren, they have to learn in kindergarten to get along with it. And I think it's not a theoretical thing which will change the world. It will change the world, but the change begins in front of your house door. You have to learn with AI, for example, the singing of birds. AI can identify which bird is singing in your neighborhood. This is a very simple, easy step, but it gets you nearer to your world with it. And I think these are the small examples where not only do your homework with AI, but explore your neighborhoods, explore your ancestry, explore your medicine, your health. I think we have to learn to get in touch with our bodies much more, and we should take AI as a tool for it. There's a German word it calls Entfremdung, estrangement. Is it estrangement? Can you? And we have to take AI to learn to give up Entfremdung, estrangement. We have to get in contact with ourselves and with our communities. And DLD brings people together who are in the driver's seat concerning developing the tools. But you all here sitting in the audience, should spreading the word for it in a positive way. And I'm so grateful. What you do, it's amazing. How many interviews are you doing here? You spread
You're
the
being
word.
interviewed now.
Well, Jennifer, you're an amazing person. She really changes our perception what's going on with AI, because you speak to the persons who are acting.
Thank you, Steffi. That's really kind. But I have talked to a lot of people here, and I wanted to share with the group an example of the power of community that is geographically relevant to where we are here today. Women are playing a transformative role in influencing the Ukrainian economy during this ongoing war. And they're demonstrating remarkable resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. And I learned that they've been responsible for approximately half of all new businesses established in the country, a testament to their entrepreneurial spirit during this conflict. Additionally, the women are stepping into positions within traditionally male-dominated sectors like security, transportation, and demining operations. And this is all being done in the spirit of sisterhood. And I wanted to share this LinkedIn post by a woman named Marika True, who is the manager of the Inner Hub Incubation Hub here in Tallinn. This was from a few days ago. She said, during the past 6 years, I've had the chance of mentoring and supporting empowering women entrepreneurship programs in Ukraine. I feel so much gratitude for having a chance to be part of the success and growth of these strong women who are rebuilding the Ukrainian economy and providing for their own families. On Friday, October 3rd, so last week exactly, they hosted their last program of the cohort for this demo day for the women. And the night before the demo day in Poltava, there was one of the worst bombing raids since the beginning of the war. The air raid sirens started around midnight. They didn't stop until around 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody slept, but at 9 a.m., all the women showed up to do their demos and ready to pitch. And one of the finalists couldn't travel because just days before, a Russian rocket destroyed her business. But she still presented her project. And she was connected remotely so she could share her results with the judges. And during this whole presentation, one of the other finalists got up and said, it's the first time I'm part of a program where I feel like it's not about competition, but about supporting each other. And to me, this is proof that even in the darkest times, during the hardest of circumstances, we can choose to work towards a better future and lift each other in the process. So I really want this panel to leave the people in this audience with a feeling of optimism. Yes, we are living in dark times, but we have a choice. So,
yes, we have a choice.
Think about what you can do as an individual, and then think about how much more powerful that can be if you work through the power of community.
Absolutely. absolutely.
So I leave you, the three of you, to end with what you want to be your parting thought.
I just want to give not even a close comparison to what you just shared with us. But we think of the work that I'm involved in thinks a lot about the next generation, right? Yes. And twofold in the sense of not just doing it in the capital of the country, but also spread across the country. So a thing that an initiative that we're developing and the consequence of that is naturally talking to the younger generation. And here I'm talking about 18 to 24, and rolling out programs that allow them to also get in touch with some of the more accomplished people that have gone through those processes. And in a week's time, I'll be in a city called Guimarães, which is where Portugal was born, and exactly talking about some of the things we're discussing here as well, to a very different audience from the one that we have here. But the point is, you go through the motions, you make yourself the time, you prioritize the things that you think will have a more impact in our own communities, with the reach that we can have. That's what I'm saying. I think it's up to us.
That's, I think, a great thing to walk away from this panel. That it is up to us.
But it's up to us. But to make it happen, take yourself serious. It's not on the past. It's a little bit about the future, but it's first of all, it's in the moment. It's in the moment, here and now. And take it serious. Take yourself in the loop. Engage for you and for your community.
Yeah, for me, I have to agree with all of you. I think, in the past, I felt like community building was super difficult. It's hard to make money, and I see all the entrepreneurs that I'm helping, raise these big, investment stages and exit and become millionaires. But for me, it's really about that human connection and bringing people together. And I feel like if any of you are focused on doing that, it's going to be more fulfilling than really anything to do with starting a company or building and growing a company. I really care about bringing people together, and I think more than ever, at this time, we need to come together and bring people together, because it's a really interesting time in the world. But we're talking about urgency, but I see hope. So I think community builders and people that bring people together are doing great work.
Here now.
Lean into it.
Here, you are.
Urgency.
You're the community right now.
Urgency and agency. Yeah.
So thanks to all three of you for building those bridges that are going to help us get to a better future. And thank you to the audience for listening. Let's have a nice round of applause for these super connectors.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne,
thank you.
Thank you so much, the panelists and the dear audience. This brings us to the end of the program today, and it's been a pleasure for the 2 days we had together to share our ideas and insights and our lessons to what to do better in the future. Lunch is served at 2:00, so you have a quick break, and I say really big thank you for being the part of Tallinn Digital Summit 2025, and see you next year.